It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. Richard Campbell's here. Yes, Richard's going to bring along some perhaps the most overhyped whiskey in history, and he'll explain why. We'll also talk about Qualcomm's new Snapdragon X. Is Windows on ARM finally going to be usable? 23H2 is released in the preview channel. We'll talk about that. And yes, the Microsoft Activision acquisition is just around the corner. Plus, a letter from the IRS. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell. Episode 850, recorded Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. Emotional Support Whiskey. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Melissa. More than 10,000 clients worldwide rely on Melissa for full-spectrum data quality and ID verification software. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date this holiday season. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. And by Cashfly, delivering rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Join Cashfly, the world's fastest CDN. Your website visitors will love Cashfly's lag-free video loading, hyper-fast downloads, and friction-free transaction processing. Learn how to get your first month free at cashfly.com/twit. Listeners of this program get an ad-free version if they're members of Club Twit. $7 a month gives you ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus membership in the Club Twit Discord, a great clubhouse for Twit listeners. And finally, the Twit Plus feed with shows like Stacy's Book Club, The Untitled Linux Show, The Giz Fizz, and more. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And thanks for your support. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Microsoft. He's back in town, baby. And I don't even know what town. I'm gonna have to adjust the lower third. What town are you in, Richard Campbell?
I'm in Madeira Park, British Columbia.
Madeira, Medeira,
That's
like
right.
the Portuguese
like
wine.
the wine.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's got a beautiful view of the ocean for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Paul, what do you have a view of in your home?
Two cats, a coach.
My favorite pictures of yours from Makunji are the trains, to be clear.
Oh,
Trains, yeah. The train is right by, there's a big stand of trees between me and the train, so I can hear it.
See the train coming down the track. That's Paul Thurrott, Thurrott.com. Richard's, of course, runnasradio.com. And they are both at their normal domiciles, if such a thing exists,
Yeah.
where they have
Some of
settled
us are
in.
more normal than others.
Yeah. Welcome home. So, I guess, I put it off as long as I can. Let's talk about Windows.
Love it. I think it's your enduring enthusiasm for Windows that
Enduring.
binds us together.
That's it.
Life.
I believe.
Wow. What's new
So-
in Windows land?
Yeah. So we've been waiting for Qualcomm to announce their Nuvia-based CPUs and to see whether they, in fact, make a big difference or not. And if they do, maybe Windows on ARM is going to be a thing. And if they don't, we've just wasted the past, 6 years of our lives? Something like that. So we'll see. But they gave a little teaser. They are having their annual Snapdragon event earlier than usual. It's in about 2 weeks. Usually used to be in December. I feel like maybe it was in November at least once, but it's going to be in 2 weeks this year. And among the things they're announcing is something called the Snapdragon X series of chipsets, which is the new name for this Nuvia-based chip that they're making.
Could be a chipset, could be a social media site. I don't even know.
Well, so speaking of that kind of thing, the CPU, I guess this is the name, not a code name, went under the name Orion, but of course it's spelled like Oryon, Ryon, and if you look up the marketing information about it, they're trying to promote the fact that this isn't technically based on anything ARM did because we really don't want to pay those licensing fees. I don't think that's the truth, but I don't care. So we'll see. This has been, let me think about that. This has been potentially the longest waiting game in the history of Windows. Now, Longhorn was a long time too, actually.
Yeah. Longhorn never came out, right? It was Vista.
Yeah, there you go. Right, but okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, we'll see. So they're going with the Snapdragon X brand. I don't have the complete list of CPUs that they made for PCs in my brain, but you will recall that the very first one, if I'm not mistaken, was the Snapdragon 835, which was just a cell phone chip.
Right.
I think the second one was a Snapdragon 850, and the last couple have been like 8CX something. Who cares? This is Achilles heel is a strong term now. It's not that bad anymore, but this is the final major piece of the puzzle for Windows and ARM. So there's a lot riding on this, and they're using all the right language, right? Quantum leap forward in performance and power efficiency. One of the problems we had seen with previous Snapdragon chipsets for PCs is that they did improve the performance, but they also, had some issues with power management. Meaning the battery life went downhill.
Well, and this whole thing, like, this is the point of going ARM, right? The battery is supposed to last all day.
Yes, right. Well, so that first gen chipset, you could get 25 hours of real world battery life with it. And the reason it was real world is because you spent that 25 hours trying to get a window to open. Yeah. The performance was really bad.
Or to figure out what apps ran at all, right? Like the cross compiling thing has been an issue. Presumably we're better at it now. I know the .NET team has worked really hard.
Yes.
Well,
yes. I suspect the other side of the coin has also been working on it. There's been a lot of talk about this stuff. We'll see. So we'll see. Anyway, this is very interesting.
I want this machine. And I don't know.
I know.
This, but I'm still holding out because that Surface Studio 2 is awfully dear.
Yeah. It's I've read enough about it now to understand why you waffled on it and probably aren't going to do it. So
you know what? For better or worse, it may be cliche, but the latest Dell XPS for easily $1,000 less. Yep. Every bit of machine without the dumb and a higher resolution screen. Like, I'm sorry, I like 4K screens.
Sure.
Is this running on Qualcomm?
No.
Okay. I just want to make it clear that that these two stories have not merged. This is
aside from a developer box, every Qualcomm-based PC has been a thin and light laptop kind of thing.
Right.
So the hope is they get it right, and then we can have all kinds of different Qualcomm-based PCs, and we'll see. So 2 weeks to go, and we'll know.
Happy with one.
We won't know. We'll know more details about the chipset. We'll see.
I mean, and it would be cool if they announced the chipset and then have a machine sitting beside it. It just seems unlikely.
Well, that would be awfully quick, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, they have partners. I'm sure they're working with. Lenovo will probably have something. We'll see. What was it?
The industry doesn't say, "Hey, we have an engine."
Yeah.
Right? So,
but this is
our new engine. It's in a car.
Look, AI is. We're going to talk a lot about AI with regards to Windows, especially soon. But this is the dream for the PC industry, and it started off as like thin, light, fanless, lots of battery life, get all those best attributes of a mobile device into Windows, right. And honestly, it's evolved to what could we do with AI and still have all that stuff. And I will say, if they can get the performance thing right, Qualcomm is uniquely positioned to take advantage of this little wave. So,
well, now you talk about needing an NPU. Like that would be the scenario.
Yep. Yeah, and they have more experience with NPUs than anyone else in the chipset business.
Short of
on themselves, our side of the fence. So I'll just say, okay.
I hope
2 weeks to go. We'll see what happens.
I love.
So there's that. And then Patch Tuesday was yesterday.
Yeah, that's why all my machines rebooted last night.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And you may recall that we have been on a very steady schedule since the beginning of the year, that week D of 1 month is the preview update version of the Patch Tuesday update that usually comes out 2 to 3 weeks later on Patch Tuesday, right? And that did not happen. And Microsoft, seriously, I give up because I have spent this year banging my head against the wall, positive I finally had the schedule down, and they just keep screwing with it. And seriously. So all I can say is Google actually made an announcement about this. There were a couple of months this year where the Google monthly Pixel update did not come out on the exact day that everyone was expecting. That world imploded. And Google finally said, look, we're just going to release these things when they're ready. So stop looking for a day. We're not doing that anymore. And I guess I'm trying. I'm really trying. I don't think I took enough medication today, but I'm looking at it and I'm trying to see it this way. Maybe this is just Microsoft saying, don't worry about the date. It will get there eventually. But this Patch Tuesday update was just a set of security fixes. There were no new features. The preview update that shipped 2 weeks ago still stands. You can still install it in preview form if you want it. And based on what just happened, because literally unprecedented, I don't know how else to say it. This has never happened ever, ever, ever. There's no way I can predict when the stable version of that preview update will occur. This is the one with all the new features, right? Some of which are delivered in CFR form, meaning randomly. You might not get them all right away. This is the stuff I've been complaining about all year long. Mm-hmm. That will happen at some point between now and the end of the year, probably asterisk. And so will Windows 11 version 23H2, based on what they've said. But no promises anymore with dates. There's no way to know. Tied to the unprecedented nature of this non-preview version of the past preview update, Windows 11 version 21H2, the original version of Windows 11, is now out of support. So they've actually took a version out of support without bringing one into support, which is what should have happened normally by now. This is the date that 23H2 would have been released under the normal schedule. So right now, for the first time ever, we have one version of Windows 11 that is supported. We also have one to some number of versions of Windows 10, of course, right? Including long-term servicing, et cetera, et cetera. But as far as Windows 11 goes, first time ever. Well, okay. Technically, when there was only one version of Windows 11, I guess we only had one in support. So maybe this is technically the normal situation. Anyway, unusual. So here we are. And then as far as 23H2 goes, again, it's not even, I wrote this down. I shouldn't have. It's not even worth, guessing. But if you are in the release preview channel of the Windows Insider program, you will eventually get 23H2. Again, it's a little bit CFR based. So sometimes you get a bunch of the features, but not 23H2. Sometimes you get 23H2 without all the features. That's why I was resetting machines, remember, and I now have at least a few machines that have 23H2 and all the features. And in fact, I think I have a third now, because right before the show I did not a reset. I just checked Windows Update, and it offered me Windows 11, version 23H2. So that's happening. If you're in the release preview and you check the box to get out of the system when the real thing ships, will it happen? Again, I'd love to say yes. This is what I'm looking for, is certainty. But because nothing works the way it's supposed to anymore, I can't even say. So it's
I love that you're even more confused about this. Like that's just,
when you thought it couldn't get any stupider, right?
The rest of us aren't confused because we're not paying attention. You're paying attention now.
That's the key.
Just when you thought it was safe to go back into Windows updates.
Frankly, I think not paying attention is the solution to many of life's ills.
That's right. Yeah.
Machine rebooted. Stuff has moved around.
Right. No. If I didn't care, how much simpler would life be? It's a fair point.
I often just wake up and go, "What? What happened?"
Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
I call that Wednesday.
I usually get up at about 7, and so many times in the past 3 weeks, I'm going to call it, I've just woken up like at 6 and just walked out in here and just started working because I don't know what's going on and I'm freaked out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a burning problem.
Well done.
Yeah. It's not. It's a mental problem, is what it is. But it's It's not my fault, right? Are
you somewhat robotic when you walk into the room and sit down? Is it like, I will work?
Well, I don't know. Does a robot careen into the wall as he walks down the hallway? Because if so, then yes.
Only when kicked by humans.
Yeah, I'm incredibly
all work and no play makes Paul a dull boy.
It's like I throw my back out and someone's like, "How did you do it?" And I'm like, "I got out of bed."
Yeah.
It wasn't anything heroic.
Yeah.
It was just me.
That's the line, right? What do you miss from your childhood? Not hurting.
Yeah, not hurting myself all the time. Yeah. Yep. I missed not waking up one day and like having a bruise on my arm for some reason. I don't even know because I don't remember hitting it, but apparently a big purple thing on my arm is going to be a thing for a while. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
You have multiple machines around you, just like I do. So the best thing about Patch Tuesday is seing how each machine has reacted.
I knew you were going to say it's the
like,
inconsistency.
It's like being in a clock shop at noon. It's so exciting.
They're just off. Well, no. So I've done this. I've shown my wife, like, look, here are 3 computers right in a row. This one has this, but not this. This one has this, but not this, and this one has something else.
Good.
And it is a wonder that I am not insane at this point. But I mean, trying to understand it is maybe my problem.
It's A/B testing, right? I mean, right. I mean, this is
when you're both A and B.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're literally going to discuss A/B testing in 2 clicks here. So let's get to
By
that.
the way, the clock scenario in this room is somebody calling me on Teams.
Oh yeah,
Stuff everywhere.
Used to be Skype, right? In fact, I could still haunt Paul's dreams by playing the Skype.
Oh God,
sound.
please! Okay. Speaking of a real need, here's something for you OS makers out there. All of us, not all of us, a lot of us use multiple like kind of messaging / chat apps now because we can't. What are we going to do? People we know use different things.
Yeah.
I need one thing that if I'm on this call on Zoom, that I am marked as busy in those other locations.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
What a feature, right?
Yeah. No,
I know.
Everything would be better if people would just have APIs and publish them and everything in an API. And, in the old days on Apple, I don't know if this is the case on Windows, but there used to be this OSA architecture that you could have Apple, was it Apple Talk built in? No, Apple Script built into every app. They'd all be scriptable.
Oh, and then you could script it.
And then you could, this was a standard. I wish it was, not everybody did it, but at one point, 1 5-minute period in 1989.
Tiny little window.
Yeah. So is there anything like that in Windows? There's no like overarching.
No, that will never. No, there isn't. And we've touched on it. We've skimmed the surface of this a few different times over history. There was a beautiful moment in time. I think I brought this up in the past month or so that Microsoft was going to write all of their server apps back before there was a cloud in PowerShell. And then they were going to just build a GUI on top of that. And the idea was that there's not going to be anything this app can do that you can't do from the command line. And that would have enabled, because it was PowerShell, it would have been automation and scripting and all kinds of other awesome things. And I think they released one version of Exchange maybe that did that. And
Exchange,
that
it was IIS-admin was the one.
Okay.
They rewrote the IIS-admin for 2008 R2, and it purely generated PowerShell scripts under the hood.
There you go. Yep. And now nobody cares anymore.
And so the great thing was now both the GUI people hated it and the PowerShell people hated it.
Yes. Right. That's right. Good. Perfect.
Yeah. PowerShell would be great if everything had PowerShell scriptability.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Jeff Snover made that come true inside of Microsoft, that almost everything.
Yeah. So the other thing that touches on what Leo just said is Microsoft recently agreed, although apparently this is not good enough, that they will allow businesses in the UK to install and purchase Microsoft 365 without Teams. And they're basically doing this plugin model that you were talking about, which would be as easy as integrating Teams. You just integrate with an open interface of some kind, and Teams is one of the apps that can hit that interface, and Slack could build to it, others could build to it. And if the whole thing was just built like that, we would have such a beautiful world, wouldn't we? And we don't. So I don't expect that to ever happen across the board for everything. I mean, especially not in Windows. So.
Well, the close piece right now is the Phone Link app.
Yeah.
Right? Which, I mean, all I wanted from the Phone Link app actually was that it took my SMSs so I could answer SMSs from my PC rather than pick up the phone.
Yeah, where you can kind of type like a normal person.
Yeah, and then it also shows me the photos that are on the phone so I can move those around. Like, that's what I wanted from it.
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. It does.
It sort of does that.
Yeah, but it also insists on seeing every other messaging app, but not giving you effective ways to respond to it. Like, you can never get it to 0 because it also throws in all of the, Google News stuff and the and the MSN stuff, it's still marketing to me.
This was by
making it look like text messages.
This was the dream of Windows Phone, right? The Messages app was going to do SMS and MMS and Skype and whatever. Facebook Messenger actually did integrate very briefly.
That is an advantage that Apple has because they make Mac OS and iOS, and so messages is the same on desktop and on the phone.
But they're still not doing what we're asking for, right? You should be able to swap out messages for your favorite app, WhatsApp or whatever.
Oh, no, we can't go that
you know.
far. But
yeah.
Well, yeah, this is the walled garden we're talking about.
Why wouldn't you want to use messages? Whatever could be wrong with you.
Well, and if you're known using a non-iOS device, we will SMS you in the saddest way possible.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
And by the way, make the rest of all the iPhone users angry at you.
That's right. Well, that used to happen to me. So we group chat with the people in my circle at the old house. If one of our neighbors would write these 1,000-word missives in text, right, and then I would like it, and it would say Paul likes, and then spew the rest of it as part of the reply, and everyone else would be like, "Oh, what is this?" And it's like, "Yeah, sorry, I'm using a Pixel over here." That's what Apple does to my texts. And they don't. Google semi-fixed that problem, by the way. Like the Pixel, if you're using a Pixel or the Google Messages app on any phone, I believe, it sends a sort of native-looking thing to the iPhone. You still don't get the color, super important. But anyhow, interoperability. This could be a career right here. Just talking about this stuff. It's unbelievable.
It's really sad because it's commercial interests that keep us from having what every custer, what users
what do we call it when a commercial interests get in the way of the needs of the customer? If only there was a term.
Yeah. Insurtification.
Yeah, wasn't that? Yeah, Cory Doctorow got that right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's sad. I wish he hadn't, because now I see it everywhere.
Yeah. Once you know.
You know.
That's it's the glasses from They Live.
Yep.
Once you see it, you cannot look away.
I've been red pilled.
Yep. It's everywhere. Okay. I've introduced it to my non-techie friends, and it's like immediately like, yep, everything.
Yep. It's all that way. Everything. We got a letter. Lisa's really up in arms from our house insurance company that said you can have no trees or shrubs within 5 feet of your house because of the wildfires around here.
Right.
And you need to send us a video going all the way around your house proving that.
Oh. Wow.
And so
putting the onus on you.
So she calls him and says, well, comes clarification. Are plants, trees, or shrubs? Because they're not in the dictionary. And the lady says, I don't know. Send us a video. We'll tell you. It's like, well, we kind of would like to know now. So, because we got we were doing landscaping anyway. We were hardscaping for that reason.
Right.
But
maybe we also would expect the service we're paying for maybe to come here. And
don't go crazy. It's going to get harder and harder in areas like this to get house insurance. And between earthquakes and forest fires, California is screwed.
Sure. Maybe you're better off not living near the water. Then you'd also need flood insurance.
Yeah, maybe. You're pretty high above the water table, it looks like, though. You're looking down at the ocean, right, Richard?
Yeah. Well, the boathouse is right by the water.
The boathouse. Oh, you're killing me, man.
That's your guest house. That's where you're staying.
Oh, okay. I'll be your boat.
And and have we planned in if the lower floor submerges as the water level rises, can we still use this?
Yeah.
No problem. We got that worked out.
Yeah. The insurtification of the world.
Yep. Of literally everything.
Yep. Of literally everything.
Okay. So couple of Windows Insider points, mostly minor. A new dev build just landed as we started the show. Nothing new here per se. New Copilot icon, which is the Copilot icon you've seen if you've moved to 23H2 or whatever. And Windows Spotlight is apparently going to be the new default wallpaper in Windows 11 moving forward. Or at some point they're testing that there. So that's super.
I had a big old Forza ad as my login screen.
Oh no, really?
It's a picture of a blower crank, which is cool. Like it's
if you like cars,
of a motor.
Yeah.
Then you realize it's an ad for Forza. Right.
Oh, that's so you're saying my wallpaper is going
to change it? You can still change it. Here's a question for you guys. This is rhetorical, by the way, but still think about this. Microsoft introduced a settings sync in Windows 8. They made it worse in Windows 10, by which I mean they took away settings, right? It's sync.
Right.
And then in Windows 11, they made it worse again. And one of the key things that they've removed from Windows 11 settings sync is what? Wallpaper sync.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Can you think? I have an idea. I'm curious what you think. Like, why do you think that might be the most common thing someone might want to sync?
Yeah.
between their old PC and their new PC is their wallpaper?
Yeah.
So why would they get rid of it?
Because they're selling that space.
What is Spotlight? That's the ad
Spotlight.
thing?
Well, it's the Bing. It's two parts to it. So Spotlight started out as a thing on the lock screen, which is what Richard's talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And it's a picture from Bing, so a nice Bing wallpaper. Those are beautiful. But then they have little ads in boxes, and some of them are just little things about the picture, but some of them are actually ads. Like, hey, have you tried Edge? It's awesome. At some point, they moved Spotlight in, or didn't move. It's still there in the lock screen, but they added Spotlight as an option for the desktop wallpaper. I don't think you get ads there. Right. But you do get, it puts like a little extra weird icon on the desktop, which I'm not a big fan of. So I don't use it. I use my own thing. I don't really think about it too much, but not apparently in the Canary channel, they are testing making that the default.
Huh.
So you boot in for the first time, new PC, or you reset your PC. And instead of the standard photo that it would be there, a picture, you'll have Windows Spotlight, which is basically a slideshow, a daily slideshow between different Bing sourced photos. I don't think it has the stuff. Like, I don't think it has ads. I don't think it has.
It doesn't have the full ad yet. It's
right.
It's just related to a product they want you to know about.
Yep. And who knows? Maybe the ad part's coming. That would maybe explain it. But so what's your guess though? Why? So in other words, your guess was, they stopped syncing wallpaper because they wanted to sell you something, which is it's a good guess too.
They wanted the default to be Spotlight. I mean, it's no different than resetting your browser default back to Edge repeated.
That could be. My guess was that setting sync is something they have to store up in the cloud somewhere. And if they had to store your wallpaper, it's possible you had multiple versions of that wallpaper. They must have been abandoned wallpapers and setting syncs that no one ever used that are just sitting there untouched, but they can't get rid of it and they have to replicate it.
Oh, that's
maybe
bad.
That stuff was taking up a bunch of space. That's my guess.
You could just put a pointer, though. You could just put a link. You don't have to put the actual image.
We're going to get to this exact topic about how Microsoft does things in the cloud and why they do things, because who knows? You know what I mean? It is not transparent. It's completely opaque. There's no way to know how they do it. I don't know.
Yeah, there's all kinds of dedupe strategies on that thing. Like, there's possibilities there. But hey, I've been using Desktop Earth as my wallpaper for the longest time. I like being able to see what the weather looks like on the place I need to call next.
That's nice.
Having a look at the
Desktop,
planet.
is that an app?
Yeah,
I've got Bing on my Bing. I like the Bing wallpapers; they're nice. But let me look at Desktop Earth. Is that in the store?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Does search cover the store desk?
Just search Bing like everyone else does, Leo, and you'll find it.
Or something.
I get Google Earth. Google Earth. Google Earth. The first three links are all Google Earth.
That's weird.
And there's the wallpaper.
Certified to me.
Here it is. Anka Me. Why is it giving me a QR code to use Edge? Stop it. I don't want to use Edge.
Why are you helping, right?
Don't help me.
All these things are just like, I had something I wanted to do. Would you quit putting stuff in front of what I'm trying to do?
And why would I scan a QR code on my desktop computer?
Somebody in the Discord has said this sounds like something Starduck could address, and that's a good point.
Yes.
I know a guy who works at Starduck, Brad, and I actually talked to his boss today because Starduck's 30th anniversary is coming up. Brad's boss is also named Brad, which is hilarious. And I don't want to ruin the eventual interview that you can read, but one of the things he talked about was the problem with this kind of thing, which is that we've moved into an era where people don't want to pay for anything. And one of their little cost benefit analyses for any utility they might write is, A, can we do it? And B, would anyone pay us for this and pay us back for our work? And this settings sync thing is an idea I put in Brad's head, who put it in Brad's head, and maybe they're looking at it. So I did try to make this happen. It may happen, but if it doesn't, the thing people need to understand is that a lot of customers go back to Starduck and they say, I don't know why you charge $7 for this thing. I don't know why you charge $5 for this thing. I don't know why, and it's a big problem because people just think everything's free now.
Nothing is free. Do we just have this conversation? By the way, I see that I have a little icon in the bottom of my
menu. You're using Spotlight?
which is the pre-release of Bing Chat. So it suggested I ask it to write a joke my coworkers would find funny. You're my coworkers. You want to hear the joke? Here's a joke. Really? How do you know if someone is using Microsoft Edge? They tell you every 5 minutes that it's better than Chrome. That sounds like even the jokes are ads now.
Oh God, that's
so awful.
Oh God.
That's not a joke. That's an ad.
This is where software is going.
Okay. Oh, my God.
And that's what we use AI for. Okay, so I promised something about A/B testing. The beta channel has moved on. This is the one that they were doing A/B testing, right? So every week or whatever the cadence was for builds, they would actually release 2 builds. One build would have all the new features, one would not. Now, of course, we know in the stable world, so to speak, which isn't all that stable, frankly, out in the shipping supported world, Microsoft delivers features randomly, sometimes via something called CFR, the controlled feature release technology. It literally means you will randomly get it at some point. It's not based on some known compatibility issue with your computer, nothing like that. It's just completely random. And people have been complaining about this ever since they switched to this model. Well, I've got good news. They're switching away from A/B testing. They're just going to have one build for the beta channel. No worries anymore. Oh, one little thing though. They're going to use CFRs to deliver the new features to those builds. Just kidding. So you guys are screwed. It's the same exact problem. We're just not going to have 2 different build numbers. Hilarious. So that build came out with no new features and just that little bit of good news, bad news thing. So it's like the rug being pulled out from under you, I guess. And then in the Canary build, which again, we keep hoping maybe this is going to be Windows 12, nothing is happening. They were updating quick settings, which is that Windows key plus A thing down in the corner with all the quick settings. And it will scroll like the start menu does, meaning, you see those little dots on the side. And if you have too many little tiles, you can have multiple pages of tiles. That's exciting. And they're renaming Xbox Game Bar to Game Bar, not probably because Xbox is being de-emphasized, but because Game Bar is a way to record screenshots and like videos. And it works in non-Xbox games, right? You could be playing a Call of Duty from Steam or something. Like, it doesn't matter what you're playing. So I think maybe they're just trying to make it more generic.
Sounds like a fun place to hang. Belly up to the Game Bar. I'd like to do that.
Yeah, the Game Bar.
Yeah,
nice.
I'll do that.
Yeah, Pac-Man and one of those tables.
Yeah, there you go.
Put your beer on Pac-Man and play the game.
Do they still have those? I played a lot of Pac-Man on those tables.
I haven't been in a Chuck E. Cheese lately, but probably. I don't know. There is a Chuck E. Cheese for adults, isn't there? What's that sports bar thing for
Dave and Buster's?
Yeah, that thing. Right.
That's a fun one. They
might have it there.
That's a fun one because you bring the kids, because they do have fun things for the kids. Then you go to the bar and they give you like a gallon of pina colada. Sure. Here, Ma.
They give you an Uber ticket too, because what are you doing driving home from this place?
Johnny, we're done. Let's go. Hey, I'd like to take a little break right now, if you don't mind, and talk about our fine sponsor. No jokes about Edge today. We're going to talk about Melissa, the data expert, the contact quality data expert. How about that in a nutshell? The holiday season is here. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings, but that means your business might be doing some mailings, special mailings, end of the year kind of thing. Help your business meet online shopping expectations, increase ROI, reduce waste and costs associated with lost and undeliverable packages, and improve your customers' overall satisfaction. Yes, Melissa could do all of that. The importance of early preparedness for retailers before the holiday season is indisputable. Here are some of Melissa's tips to help you get started. First, clean your contact data with Melissa's data cleaning solutions. That stuff goes bad fast. All your stale, outdated data gets replaced thanks to Melissa with verified, accurate information, such as replacing old addresses for people who've moved, adding new emails or phone numbers. Customers always want a seamless experience with efficient delivery. Make sure your business is meeting their expectations. Next day and 2-day delivery implementation in high demand, right? Everybody wants it now. Melissa ensures that addresses are verified and standardized at checkout with their autocomplete tool. Customers love it because they don't have to type the whole address in. You'll love it because they don't accidentally switch numbers in the zip code or the phone number. Not only does having a verified address at checkout ensure the address is correct and deliverable, It also cuts down on keystrokes by up to 75%. If it's for your customer or your customer service rep, that's a great experience. Offering bundles and cross-selling to existing customers is more cost-efficient than finding new ones. Existing customers, they're already in the fold. The holiday season is a perfect time to do this. Customers are most likely shopping for others. So use Melissa to profile your data to give you a better understanding of your customer base and best-selling products, which can help you create more effective marketing strategies. Oh, one more thing Melissa can do that you should do is match and dedupe the data. Clean that database out of the duplicates because you don't want to do extra mailings this time of year. And you'll now have a complete 360-degree view of each customer with matching. Help you better understand your customers, allowing for more personalized marketing, a better customer experience. Since 1985, Melissa has been specializing in global intelligence solutions and contact data quality. Melissa continually undergoes independent security audits, so your data is in good hands, SOC 2, HIPAA, and GDPR compliant. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Get started today with 1,000 records. Clean for free. Melissa.com/twit. That's Melissa.com/twit. We thank them so much for their support of this fine program and these two good-looking gentlemen, Windows Weekly. Now, I think, having covered Windows strongly, let's move on to Office 365.
What could go wrong?
Oh, I'll tell you what could go wrong.
Don't scare me, man. Don't scare me.
Hot off of its successful intervention in the Activision Blizzard debacle, the UK CMA has turned its attention to Microsoft and Amazon cloud licensing. And I got to say, actually, Activision Blizzard needed to be looked at. I was hoping it wasn't going to be from a room full of baboons, but cloud licensing needs to be looked at as well. It's amusing. This is something Richard will know a lot about, just licensing in general, Microsoft licensing. It's amusing to me when that these people who are not probably technical are going to try to figure this out. I think this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm sure what it's really about is whether they use their licensing to harm competitors, not, a general licensing issue. But if you know anything about Microsoft licensing, you know that, or you know anything really about EULAs, I guess, right? It's not, this wasn't written to help anybody. It's definitely written maliciously.
There are definitely parts. The primary job of a EULA is to make sure you don't actually own anything. But
yes,
these are no different than the agreements you sign for your credit cards, that you signed for a cell phone. They are designed to obfuscate. They're complicated for a reason. It's useful.
Right. That's right. They're written by lawyers, right?
Yeah. And lawyers,
guys, and I do,
intent to obscure.
That's right. People in the product teams who are like, I don't know this. We had nothing to do with this. Like, obviously, that's not, but it's designed to protect the company, Drew, right? The point of, the big point of it is just to protect them against any legal challenge. But I'm sure the UK CMA, actually they would look at something that went after consumer harm. That's not what this is. This is about whether their licensing model prohibits the companies that use Microsoft or Amazon cloud services from having better deals with other companies or working with other companies, that kind of thing. It's really looking into whether or not.
Question one is what other companies? Like there's only two cloud rivals, Amazon and Microsoft. When you talk about
this is an organization
from a
that thinks
UK perspective,
they think cloud gaming is a market. Richard, I'm sure there are.
When I first saw this piece, my thought was, is this a vengeance play for humiliating themselves over the Blizzard thing? Like, fine, we can't get to play with Blizzard. Let's go here.
Yeah. I can't deny that that's a possibility. It's possible.
At the same time, this is worth scrutinizing. This is clearly a duopoly. So it is worthwhile to put a little heat on them to say, are you, I'm not so much that you may be stopping other people in the market, but are you colluding?
There is this will actually come up again in the show. I keep saying stuff like that. I apologize, but there is also this thing where I don't remember the regulatory body. It was probably the EU, but at some point in the past couple of years, went to Microsoft and said, was cloud licensing, said this is unfair. It prevents your customers or partners from doing something. And they said, you know what? You're right. We we probably got caught up in that legalese about protecting the company.
Right.
Our intent was not to harm these people. We're gonna fix it. So they actually kind of proactively said, "Look, we'll do right."
Well, and therein lies, the real question is how often does that scenario happen and just never makes press?
Yeah, that's right.
And again, the only problem with this statement is UK CMA. If it was the EU, you'd be fine. It's like,
these guys, right? That's exactly.
A professional group of people are going to evaluate a couple of the largest companies in the world to make sure they're doing right. Good on you. Thanks. That's a good service. And you said UK CMA and it became a joke.
This is problematic on a few other levels, but one of my big issues here is, and I don't mean this in a, sarcastic or mean way, but with the UK leaving the EU, it has entered a different realm of regulation, if you will. Yeah. I mean, there are major markets in the world like the United States and the EU and China and whatever else, and those are what I would call like the tier A markets that you need to worry about from a regulatory perspective. Right. Even if the UK was completely on the ball, and they're about as far from it as they can be with the CMA. I mean, I don't know. It's like you're not doing the right thing. It's like, okay, well, we'll just not do it there. How does that sound?
Yeah.
It's kind of an answer.
You are talking, it's the UK. So it's 67 million people. Yeah. Like, it's not, you'd be giggling if it was New Zealand, right?
Yes. Right. That's right. Well, yeah. I mean, and New Zealand is one of the late to the game countries that okayed the Activision Blizzard deal. It was that's great. Hey, thanks. Well, no, we'll hang that on the fridge. Thank you.
We're really excited.
That's cute. That's cute. We were waiting on that,
So, I mean, I would argue it's an interesting, it is a market. When you talk about Western world, it's a market, but it's no 300 million in the EU. Let's say
that's what I meant. That's what I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest they were not important at all, but they're just the next level down. That's all.
Yeah. And so again, it was why is this even the news? Like, Japan,
I appreciate them. There's a nationality thing going on here where we're going to flex our muscles here a little bit, and we still matter. And I get it, but and I do think this thing needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I agree. And again, if it was the EU doing it, I wouldn't even blink. It's like, yep, thanks. That's a useful service. That's what we pay you for. It's part of this is I wonder if they're just trying to reestablish themselves. Like you kind of had to reinvent.
I do think there's an element to that. Yeah, I do. Yep.
Again, one of the ways you would be credible here would be the UK CMA to be working with the EU on it.
That's right, which they should do. But yes, I mean, I'm sure a lot of identity was lost when they got subsumed into the EU, although they did it in the loosest possible fashion, didn't adopt the currency, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see. Anyway, this is a tough one because yes, it's like, yep, Amazon and Microsoft cloud licensing, yep, should be looked at. Absolutely. UK CMA, like, oh, that's too bad. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then they'll give it, what they'll do is force Microsoft to go through a French data center because that's how they seem to solve problems.
Well, I would argue that primary data center is in Ireland.
There you go. Which, maybe they'll take control of Ireland. That will be fun. That seems like a good idea.
Did you see that Activision, Bobby Kotick is having an event? Yeah. What's that all about? Is it like his farewell? No, because he's still gonna. Or no, it would be his farewell.
Yeah, if that deal's gone through, he's supposed to be exiting. Supposed to be.
They hired James Corden to host it.
Yeah,
that's so weird. It was internal.
Well, there's your UK angle. So, see, we care about the UK still. We got James Corden to host this thing.
Right.
Kodak fielded a range. So this was an internal only.
All hands meeting.
All hands.
Gotta be his exit.
It's gotta be goodbye, right?
Yeah.
It's gonna close Friday. Is that the official?
That's not official, but it is the rumor. Yeah.
And what's his severance? $300 million.
Yikes. And he, as he's going out, as waving goodbye, he says, "Oh, and by the way, Guitar Hero's coming back."
Hey, my legacy. Another company that can.
Isn't that sad? That's his legacy, Guitar Hero.
That's actually not his legacy, Leo. I would point to the workplace problem.
Oh, that yes.
But
he did. But you know what? You can say that, and it's true, and certainly his victims probably think that. But he did bring home a $72 billion
That's right.
deal.
And by the way, he was also, without knowing anything about the company, because honestly, who pays attention to these corporate structures for companies like this? He was at Activision forever.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't just there for the past 5 years or something.
No.
He was.
He's one of the founders.
He was there from a long time.
The duration. This is from Windows Central. James Corden, famous. He's famous. He used to have a TV show or something. He was drove in the car and they sing a song.
Isn't he the lead singer in Queen now?
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait.
I think so. Corden asked how Kotick and ABK leadership will retain its culture.
Of course.
Which Kotick repeatedly...
God, I hope not, he said.
Wait a minute. No. Repeatedly described as magic and special during the discussion.
Yikes. Well, actually, he's had some problems himself on set, hasn't he? Or behind the scenes, rather.
Oh, yeah. He's kind of I've heard he's maybe... got a temper.
I think all these guys have.
Everybody
honestly,
has.
all these talk show hosts have had issues.
Has. I don't, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You give somebody a lot of money and power and,
yep.
Yeah.
And they act badly? Huh.
Yeah, they act badly. What a surprise.
Right.
I can't believe he asked Kotick about the culture of Activision Blizzard.
Just somebody who has no idea what's going on.
He's like, I'm going to have to live
It's on my card here. I'm going to read it.
So people should have said, don't mention the culture.
Yeah, no culture. There's no culture.
But I think he's probably paid to mention the culture.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
We'll get back to Activision, I promise.
Yeah, we haven't discussed it enough
Google,
yet.
I took almost personal exception to this because I follow this stuff very closely. Right? If you know anything about online accounts and 2FA and now passkeys and all the different and hardware keys, which apparently now are just a little blip in time for most people. You know that certain companies do a great job of this and certain companies don't. And some companies were early to this game and some were kind of late to this game. And Google has actually done a pretty good job, not a great job, but a pretty good job with passkeys. And they just advertise the fact that they're going to make passkeys the default on their consumer accounts, like Gmail accounts. And good for them. That's so cute. But you know what? But the thing
Bless their hearts.
No, but the thing is, I want to inject a little bit of truth to this story. You can't not sign into Gmail without a password. You have to do it at least once on every device that you own. That's not true of a Microsoft account. Years ago, they enabled passwordless. You can literally delete your password from your MSA if you want to. I haven't, but you can. And anyway, the point is, when I sign into my MSA on any device for the first time, I have never entered my password. It goes right to the 2FA. Yep. And then and that's it. And so unfortunately, good for you, passwordless. Yay, Google. But it's not there. They still haven't done it.
Yeah.
I don't understand promoting that. You're not leading anything.
I did it. My first passwordless run I think it was in 2020. And it was pretty rough back then. It has only really, today we just take it for granted. At least
totally take it for granted. Yep. And actually, if you move back and forth between MSAs, which are consumer accounts, and what Microsoft calls terribly a Microsoft Work or School account, what used to be an AAD account,
right?
You may notice there's some interesting difference in the way that Microsoft Authenticator handles those. So, for example, on an MSA, you'll often get a dialogue that says, this is the number, like the number 20 is important. And you go to your little phone and you do your fingerprint in your face or whatever it is. And then you have to choose one of three numbers. You hit 20 and then it works. And then on the work and school side, they actually do it the opposite. The phone will give you a code and you go to the computer or device, whatever it is, and you actually type that thing in on the other end. So it's almost like they're experimenting, which to me, with what to me is kind of the same thing, right? It's a little additional extra. I don't know what that is. It's like 17-bit security. I don't know what that is, but it, whatever. Anyway, it's still evolving, I guess is my point. I'm not sure if one of those ways is better. It's weird they do it differently. Google does not do this. They don't do it.
I used a line the other day. I was talking to a senior Microsoft person. So is identity the third rail at Microsoft? Because it does seem to be smashing some careers, but there's new leadership in that space. That's why the new name Entra.
Yeah. So
are doing some good things. No two ways about it. I've got some shows coming in that space. But it is the number prompting thing is a good idea. It stops people from from accepting.
Yeah,
I told you
just
like
accept
that.
exactly. You have to think.
Yeah,
You're right.
I love
it's
that.
like the third light on a car. In the back of brake.
Well, it's also the one, if you don't see the number, you can't answer it correctly.
Yeah.
The friend of mine who's a sysadmin who was dealing with an older gentleman who was literally account was under attack.
That's
and
right.
while he's talking him through him, the guy accepted an authentication request by the attacker.
It's like, I think I figured out what happened, Bob.
Yeah. Well,
the call is coming from inside the house.
So the number thing just creates this complexity where it's like, it's asking me what number it is and I can't see the number. Well, then don't answer it.
Yeah. This is UAC should do this.
So
anyway.
So actually some technical questions. So what Microsoft's doing, and for those who don't know, everybody knows, but for those who don't know, you go onto Windows and it says, would you want to approve this on your phone? And it says we're going to send a message to your phone, a notification, and the number to your authenticator, whatever. Right. But usually it's a phone, right? I mean, it has to be smart enough to have to show this number. Right. Then it says the number is 72, and then your phone, it pops up and you get a choice of numbers and you click it, and then
it's like a little captcha almost. You have to pick the right number.
But it's very easy. It's very straightforward. Is that single sign-on? Is that what SSO is?
No. That's multi-factor authentication.
Right.
Single sign-on is once I have that token, now I can move.
It passes through. It's a pass-through. Single sign-on is a pass-through. So Windows, when you sign into Windows,
but without the number, it would be single sign-on.
No.
It really.
Explain.
No, it's about taking the authentication and applying it and paying it forward. Actually, it's kind of a
being able to
use
it more places.
Yeah. So in Windows, when you sign in for the first time on a new PC, you do the thing we just described. So you've used 2FA or MFA, right, to prove that you're you. You didn't type in your password, passwordless. Yay, Google.
Yeah.
And then you get to the desktop, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the things that pass through are automatically, although you can change this, is your OneDrive account automatically signs in and syncs up with your OneDrive. Your store, Microsoft Store, signs up with that account.
I'm signed into
your
everything
apps.
now. Basically.
Your apps are all set. Your mail and calendar app is all signed in. It's a pass.
And in future, Windows Hello will log me in unless the machine I'm using doesn't have Windows Hello. In which
Windows
case,
Hello actually now
does
support.
Yes.
You can do Windows Hello. Actually, Windows Hello for passkeys. Sure, you can do.
Yeah. So once so in other words, this is a single-time authentication. It's effectively two-factor, except it's one-factor. It's the thing you have. You don't have to know anything.
Well, there's more factors going on than you know.
Oh.
Now we get into the additional
that's
access.
right.
So just to explain, there are three
Yes.
possible factors for authenticating you are who you say you are. Something in your head, like a password, something
so
you know.
on your phone,
something you
hopefully.
are, eyes or fingerprints.
Well, but
and
you have a
something
phone.
you have, your phone.
And hopefully you're signing in, or a computer, right? And you're using Windows Hello or Face ID or a fingerprint or whatever it is to
It's also
authenticate
the
to the
device identity is relevant to the equation. So if it's a known device, you've used it before.
That's something you
the
have.
location of the device, like
That's
what
something you
IP
have.
you're coming from.
No, that's something you have. That's all something you have. That's
but it's
one
also
factor.
it's something secure that you have, and it's
you have
to authenticate to get into it.
You are kind of making an assumption. Will it not work if I don't have Face or Touch ID?
Well,
it will.
The app also requires it too, though. You can't get into the Microsoft Authenticator app without authenticating using Face or Touch.
Okay, so I have physically authenticated.
There's multiple layers. Yes.
Yeah. So that's the second factor. I've already authenticated to the Microsoft app.
Just because you got into your phone doesn't mean you get into Authenticator. It still makes you do it every single time. You still have to go through it. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is two-factor.
But as someone who travels a lot, like geo factors matter.
Right. So they pay attention to where it's coming from.
Absolutely. Yep. So this laptop is the same laptop. Its signature is the same, but now I'm in Perth. And it's like, well, that's weird. I'm going to ask you a couple more authentication requirements.
Okay.
A good online
that's an
account
unreliable geolocation because it's doing it by IP address. Most laptops don't have GPS built in.
Yeah, but Amazon does this.
Amazon
Amazon will sense that you're somewhere else and say, hey, we're going to ask you a couple of questions and then you're changing your password. Sorry. I mean, it's better than the alternative, right? Yeah. It's just they're trying to do something. I appreciate that.
Well, and the important part that's been happening, and I got the show coming on this, is that they're centralizing that whole mechanism, the sophisticated one, so that it doesn't matter what accounts you're using or what approaches you're using, it works consistently.
The main point is it is secure and more secure than simply a password.
That's right.
Actually, my main point was Google still makes you type in your password in its passwordless world, and I'm getting tired of their marketing because that's nonsense.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, most people faced with passkeys, because the way you could do it, I just tried it. When I logged out of my Google accounts on this computer, and then I tried to sign in, and it said, well, you could use your passkey, scan this QR code with your phone. So, but it's not the only way.
Except for one thing.
And most people, I think, are just going to say, well, yeah, but I have a password manager, so I'm just going to enter the password.
Yeah. Okay. Right? I have yet to run into a Chromebook or a Windows PC or an Android phone or an iPhone where I had to not type in my Google password. I've never been offered the passkey the first time. Like it's never.
You've always had to type in the password.
Yeah. So hopefully that changes. I'm just saying.
It doesn't remember that like it does with Microsoft. It doesn't remember it.
Well, no, once you've done it, you should technically be able to use your pass key from there on. But
right. Well, so that's what Microsoft does. You just told me you have to authenticate Authenticator before you can use it.
Yeah, but Microsoft always does it right every time. Google will actually prompt you, and then you can say, try another way, and then go through a menu, and eventually you can get to a thing where you can use the pass key, maybe. You know, but it never does it on the first time, ever. And that's my issue.
Try it now, because
I want to not know that password.
Seems to do a better job.
Password.
Seems to do a better job now. Yeah.
Sorry, what does?
Just try it now. I think part of this announcement that Google has made is improving its passkey thing.
Okay.
Because believe me, I think passkey is dopey, and we talked about this yesterday with Steve, and I think it's already dead in the water because nobody uses it.
Oh no, that's brand new though. It's still is just happening. I think it's going to be okay.
Okay, so it's going to happen.
And looking at what it's taken over the past few years for Microsoft to get where they are right now, like
listen,
it went through a bunch of twitches. Like it's not
still looking for the promise of 5G. Give it a second. It's brand new.
So I just because it's a new phone, I had to re-add my authenticator, my Microsoft authenticator to this, and I went through several steps, including the two-factor, which I use an authenticator for that. Right. So now, if I can use it to log in, like a new setup on Windows. I don't have to have a password. I could just say authenticate through the phone.
I mean, technically, you never needed it, but you could use. Even before the Microsoft Authenticator app, it would send a code to your phone. You could do it that way if you wanted. That's not super secure, but it's better than sending a password, maybe.
But you're saying even with Google's passkeys, you still have to enter a password every time.
One time.
Well, that's the same with Microsoft. I just had to enter my password.
No, it isn't. You never have to type it with Microsoft. Never, not once.
To get my authenticator working, I had to put Leo, my address.
You have to authenticate it some way, but you literally do not need a password with a Microsoft account.
Ever?
You could delete it.
Oh.
Yeah, they let you delete it. That's
so how would I authenticate this Microsoft Authenticator?
Oh, boy. I can't. Okay, so you want me to,
Well, no, okay. So you're telling me there's some way that I could make.
Yeah,
see, it seems like an endless loop is my problem. Everything.
No, I can answer this question. Okay. Give me a second. I got it. Microsoft has secondary forms of authentication, right? You could send you an email. You could send a text message to your phone. Right. You could send an email to a backup account. There are secondary forms. So
that's increasingly how people are doing it is, I see this a lot in social networks where they say, here's your email address. Okay, we're going to send you a link. Click the link and you're in.
How many times have you gotten that little message and then the link never appears?
I hate that.
And you're sitting there waiting for it. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm not doing this right now. And then it finally shows up like an hour later for some reason. God knows what happened there. And then you type on it. It's like, no, this expired.
Yeah. Is all of this better than a password? Is that the point? Is they're trying to replace passwords? Okay.
Yeah, because passwords, are easily broken into, and if that's your only form of authentication,
but
it's not
email
really secure. I know. Listen, it behooves you as a user to ensure that everything you're doing is as secure as it can be, right? So it's on you to use some hopefully form of biometric sign-in on a phone, right? And or on your PC, if you have Windows Hello, on a Mac, if you have that fingerprint thing, whatever they call it, Touch ID. And that is where you access your email. And it's kind of protected behind that umbrella of security, right? That's like one stage. But, people are lazy and people don't like to sign in. But if you do if we're going down the path where you're using an authenticator app, in particular Microsoft Authenticator, because very specific form of authentication for Microsoft accounts.
I have to sign it.
Yeah, of course you do, and you have to type in your damn password. Like I said.
Well, let me see. Let me see. I want to see if I do, because I have a passkey set up with this account. See, sign in with your passkey.
Yeah, but you've already done it. It doesn't. But all you did was sign out. It's on the computer. The passkey's tied to the computer. It's built into the authentication.
No. I have to. No. It's tied to my iPhone. So I have to do it on the iPhone. Now,
right, so if this is happening, then great. Then
that's what I'm thinking is that they have
a password.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I literally tried this as recently as this morning, so I'm not.
I just did it. Yes. So I just did it. So I scanned that QR code. I used it did want me to do the Face ID on my iPhone.
Yep. Which
I should do. And now Passkey has welcomed me.
And what it should have done is added a Passkey to that computer. So
it's now saying you can create it here. Yeah.
Yes. There you go. Which is exactly what you want. That's good. So it only took them. All right, then I will reset what I said. That it looks like they are fixing it, it just took them 2 years longer than Microsoft. So good, that's fine. That was my point.
But this is a big story because it hasn't worked until
you don't want to have
recently.
To type a password.
Yeah.
But the thing is, what bugs me is Passkey or not, just talking 2FA and Authenticator apps. Microsoft did do this 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Why wasn't that a big story? Like this, I mean, to me, that. I experimented with it on a secondary account, but like I said, I'm not going to delete the password from my primary Microsoft account for probably suspicious reasons, or what do you call it? Stupid reasons, but
technical reasons.
But you can, if you want to, you can just get rid of it. You will not have a password. That's something you can do. That's all I'm saying.
It's a good thing.
All right, let's move on from this. So, I promise we come back to this theme. So. Microsoft has stepped back from their plan to basically double charge OneDrive users for photo storage when they share photos with others.
This was so weird.
This is very similar. Yeah, paranoid reasons. Exactly. Thank you, Mike. Sometimes you're paranoid and sometimes you're right. Sometimes you both. This is where I was saying, we don't understand the underlying mechanism. There was a possibility that the way Microsoft did cloud storage behind the scenes that we would never know about, that this data was replicated, and that was part of the rationale for.
Oh, and why would we want to know, right? Like that's their problem.
Well, because they're charging us for it. So
only because they decided to do something than every other provider. Like I just don't understand.
Yeah. Anyway, they're not going to do it anymore. So people complained, and they said, you know what? I'm sorry. We made a mistake. We're not doing this. So here's the thing, and I need everyone to gather around the little virtual fire pit here and pay attention to this bit because it's important, and it's true. There is a lesson that we need to learn here, and that lesson is that Microsoft actually listens to feedback, not through the Insider program. That's hilarious. But if they hear from their customers about things that they've done out in the world, this has happened repeatedly.
Yep.
They just walk it back.
Yep.
In fact, if anything, they walk it back almost too much. They're a little too eager to please, in my opinion. But this is the type of thing that I think is important to take note of, because when Windows 11 23H2 comes out and people start noticing all the advertising for backing up to OneDrive all the time everywhere, which we'll talk about a little bit in the back of the book today, you need to understand that it is on you to complain to Microsoft. They listen to customers. They really apparently don't listen to insiders at all. But actual customers using the shipping version of the product, yes, they do listen.
It is part of the mantra inside of Microsoft is that come with customer data. Yeah. There's a little bit of a hyperbole in your insider response. They are sensitive to, and only a little, they are sensitive to the influencers. Right? The famous story around this, this was actually a Steven Sinofsky story, and I was in the room. He had a bunch of influencer type celebrities and things like that. And he was talking, this is in the Win 7 timeframe, and they were talking about IE9. Right. And he said, how many people here use bookmarks?
Yes.
And the whole room put up his hand, right? Because we all use bookmarks. And he said, so we've got the Dr. Watson data. We know how much bookmarks are used across the spectrum for browsers.
Wait a minute, they still call it Dr. Watson data?
Well, everything is referred to by its original name.
We're talking about it more than
a meeting in Outlook as a Schedule Plus. Like this is just
wow,
15 years ago. Yeah. And he says, how many people do you think we see across the board? He goes, 0.1%.
Yeah, it's literally you guys in this room.
It's all of you people in the room, and it's nobody else. And it's like, you know how much work we're going to do in the bookmark manager for the next version of IE? Nothing. You get
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, we're renaming this conference room to Echo Chamber. So, yeah. No, that's right.
As much as we can, we could talk about Sanofsky in a bunch of different ways. Like, guy wasn't wrong about that. Like, very clearly, there's a danger with influencer types because we do approach things differently.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Fair enough. Yes. So this OneDrive issue is not something that would have come up in an insider program. They never test OneDrive features with insiders. That's crazy. But it is something that impacted people, and they sent out emails, and people saw this and they were like, "What is this? What are you talking about? You told me to share stuff with this account, and now you're going to go back and bill me after the fact because this is using storage somewhere that why would I even know about this?" Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's just good news. And then, like I said, we got to pay attention to this because this is important in our space to understand. Microsoft really does care what you think. Mm-hmm. Like I said, a little bit too much maybe. But this is, we need to stand up collectively as a community when they do things that are bad. And I've been discussing a bunch of that stuff this year. So,
well, the point being, if you press on them, you'll get results.
That's right. I can press on them; it gets nothing. They look at me like I've got, I don't understand why wouldn't you want to see ads all over your operating system. I don't know. I'm trying to get work done. I don't know. Weird. And then this could have gone under whatever. The Microsoft Store is something that people think of as an app in Windows 11 and 10, but actually it's also a thing on the web, and it just got a huge redesign. And honestly, it's kind of cool looking. That is, it's apps.microsoft.com, and it's really just a kind of a web front end. This is, I think they use the default. Let me ask you a
question about this new look.
Yeah.
Why can't the Xbox look like this?
I know.
This is good, right? It's got a little gallery effect. It's got a detail dive. Like, it has. Obviously, you're able to do this.
I know.
Why?
I know. Well, they can do it on the web. The Xbox is resource constrained in the ways that the web isn't, apparently, because there's something so weird. Just about the Xbox dashboard. That's been true since forever, actually. Remember the Blades UI in Xbox 360? What they switched from that over to a Windows 8 style panorama experience. And ever since then, the dashboard has just been the biggest pig, and they can never seem to fix it. And
here's my question. You can run Starfield on an Xbox.
I know.
Starfield.
I know.
I'm pretty sure you can run JavaScript.
Flight Simulator, right? You can't run a flat UI to choose apps.
Yeah,
I know. This is just it's been a weird problem for a long time.
It's so strange.
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay.
Yes. So we got a couple of AI things. I almost said HP things. That'd be something. First with the sauce. So there was an interesting report in the Wall Street Journal, which has apparently returned to journalism this year, which has been fun.
Don't get too excited.
Well, there's been a couple of good reports from them lately. They were the ones that broke the news on what was the other thing? Oh, the Chromebook thing, and Google changed their policy on support, like basically doubled it. So anyway, they came out with a report based on multiple sources who say that GitHub Copilot, which is for individuals is $10 a month.
Right.
Loses on average $20 per user per month. So, raising the SNL, bank joke to new levels, like how do we actually make money? And it's through volume. Right. But I think this points to why maybe Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to be $30 a month.
The math works perfectly, right? They charge $10, exactly right. Losing $20, charge $30.
Yeah. AI transactions are expensive. And, I would think, GitHub Copilot among Copilots, so to speak, would be maybe the most efficient of the group.
Well, it's one of the oldest.
Yeah.
It was originally built on 3. They may have upgraded. Yeah. The only reason I think this number is like this is because the user count is low.
Okay. Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
There may be a volume angle on this, but the other point I would make is you are collecting money on this already. You're not that far away from raising the rate, but I think GitHub's current billing strategy is all messed up. Like, stop working from
I didn't report
the individual
on this.
Start moving into enterprise.
So let's see.
You would think being owned by Microsoft, they would be better at enterprise, and they're struggling.
Yes.
So
I got an email from GitHub today, which I assume was an attempt to counter this news, which was that based on new research, the impact of AI on GitHub with GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot chat, 85% of developers feel more confident in their code quality. Code reviews are more actionable, 50% faster without Copilot. 88% of developers feel less frustrated and more focused in their IDE. And you know what you don't see in that little announcement? A dollar sign. Because the thing that's not helping anybody.
It might be preparatory to raising it by $20.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I think so.
You see how much value you get? Maybe you should pay $50 a month.
Yeah.
And these are all silly numbers, right? When you think about what a developer is paid, you don't have to save
No, it's worth
hours.
it. That's a half hour of their time. A month.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what this is very much like Azure pricing. When Microsoft first came out with Azure, well, first of all, it was in preview and you didn't have to pay for it. But remember, what they said was, listen, we're going to send you a bill every month. We're not going to bill you, but we want you to see the bill, and we want you to tell us what you think of
about
the bill,
how much it costs us.
We're still well, because we're still trying to figure out, like, how do we charge and how does it make sense for you? How does it make sense for us?
The equivalent of this memo, I think. Yeah.
I think so too. I think we have a very, talk about Microsoft licensing. We have a very standard model here at Microsoft for charging people for things. It's the per user per month thing. And we throw out a number. I don't think they fully even understood how much it would cost them, frankly. And it's not their fault. I'm not saying it's their fault. This is brand new. And by the way, the prices are going to go down over time, of course, right? That's the plan.
Well, and I would argue that Div is kind of behind the ball on this. Like they've been selling annual, it used to be called MSDN subscriptions, but it's not anymore, for studio and things like that for $1,000 a year for decades.
Right.
And they largely haven't raised their prices. And they're not they're not utilization based in any way.
The journal says some users are costing $80 a month.
But yeah.
But so what? Charge them $100 a month.
Well, that's like any service, right? You have the guys who take advantage of it, the guys who sit there and never use it. It's like a gym membership or whatever.
What this is preparatory, and I am still suspect on the Wall Street Journal, but what this is preparatory to a slew of articles you're going to start seeing about the energy costs of AI, right? And as the journal says, AI doesn't have the economies of scale of standard software because it can require new calculations for each query.
Yes. So forget about AI for a second. In the transition from on-prem servers to data centers in the cloud computing, there's also there was an unknown there for Microsoft and Amazon and whoever else right in the beginning. It's like, well, we have to invest in new ways here. We have to build new data centers in multiple regions. And, there are data protection laws in Europe and elsewhere. We have to have certain things in certain places. And you go into it with this kind of historic understanding of how much things cost, and those rules don't apply anymore.
No, not with AI.
To this new thing. And I think that AI has done this to the mixture again. I think it's.
So here's by the way, cryptocurrency did the same thing, and everybody bitched about it.
And that worked out great. So, whatever.
One of the things crypto was able to do is move from proof of work to proof of stake, which saved a lot of energy. Is there a similar savings somewhere in the way AI works? That could, they're obviously going to be looking for that. I just saw an article that said by 2027, AI will use as much energy as the entire Netherlands uses.
So we're literally going to talk about this this is kind of the point of this section today.
Go ahead.
Let's
shut up.
No, we might as well just some of the things that are happening, right? So given how expensive AI is for the companies providing it, you run into this problem like, well, how much do you charge? And so Copilot on 365 and Duet AI for Google Workspace are both $30 per user per month on top of whatever the subscription is. And so those things were announced still kind of early in the game, but I think they have a little slightly better handle on how much things cost now. But those companies either are or are working to have their own chipsets that can be more efficient in the cloud. They're working to have AI chipsets on devices that will provide some better together benefit when you can do a lot of on-device processing of LLMs and whatnot, and that maybe there'll be some savings there, right? Once we can push some of the workloads down to the client. So that's part of it. And then, in the Microsoft space specifically, we see we understand the outcome of this. They're working on AI chipsets, possibly with AMD, but that's just a rumor for their data center. And then, of course, their PC makers are all implementing AI chipsets and NPUs, whatever they're called, in various ways, right? On die, off die, different schemes, whatever. So the goal here is that maybe they, it's like Xbox sales. You lose a little bit in the beginning, but hopefully over time you cost reduce and it becomes profitable, and then maybe wildly profitable. I don't know.
Well, one would argue that right now they're level setting, right? These are the first prices for large language model products.
And it's a moving target, right?
Yeah.
More and more people come on board all the time. They start straining these things more and more.
That LLMs are still in a very much brute force phase.
Yeah, that's right.
There hasn't been a lot of right sizing and sophistication yet. So there's things to be done. But, again, we're already debating cynicism versus wisdom in the chat as it is. You got to anchor your pricing. This WSJ story, this serves GitHub brilliantly.
Yeah.
Right. It's
yes.
Great story.
Because otherwise, how spastic would Microsoft look? GitHub Copilot or Microsoft 365 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. If they said, okay, here's the pricing. And then 3 months later, they said, boy, people are using this a lot more than we thought. It's more, we're going to raise the price. And then 3 more months go by and like, oh my God, actually, here we go again. And I mean, in a way, this helps them get ahead of this a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, because it's probably exactly what's going on.
I hope so.
At the same time, it's like, this, we should be utilization pricing anyway.
Right.
Right. So they should be structuring this as a threshold. But right now, they're just gauging the market. Hey, if I charge you $50, we still use it. Great. If I charge you $100,
it's very speculative. I mean, even in Microsoft,
start pushing back. It's like, can I give you 2 tiers? Like, there's room for playing.
Right. Exactly. Yep, that's right. And the stuff that one of the other strategies I forgot to mention was we haven't really talked about this a lot, but the information had a story about Microsoft investigating ways to create smaller versions of AI, if you will, for certain use cases so they don't use as many resources. Like, do you need the power of the entire internet for certain types of things? Maybe not. And if so, that would be particularly beneficial on things like Bing, where it's just ad supported and doesn't make any money. Or, all the Bing stuff, image creation, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you could limit bandwidth. A lot of the AIs do this. You get tokens, and you can speed up a transaction and use up a token, or you can just let it go and see how long it takes and who cares. And if it's not important, you don't have to pay anything.
But there's definitely this efficiency part comes later. Right.
Yes,
but this is push this thing over the line for a while.
Nobody when Microsoft added the ability to bold text to Microsoft Word, it didn't raise energy costs at their data center. They didn't have to, it's like, we'll bold that in a little while. Just hold on, just give it a second. It will bold later. I mean, it's just a different world of.
Well, and arguably not a particularly efficient one, right?
Right. Well, because it's brand new.
Yeah. Well, and also the LLMs, like these very large machine learning models. And were never designed for efficiency. That's not what they are. So it's interesting to think there's a number of strategies that exist in that space to say we can optimize this. We can reduce the language that it doesn't need to be that big, especially for optimization areas like programming. We can increase the sophistication of the preprocessor, the prompt generator, again, to target more efficiently. Like there's a bunch of things that can.
Oh my God, across the board, efficient. I mean, there are dozens and dozens that
we're in very much that brute force phase right now. And this is an excuse to adjust pricing.
Yeah, that's right.
To give them margins to work towards. But,
and that's why doing it this way with a little leak to the Wall Street Journal
absolutely serves well.
Might be the best approach, because otherwise they would just look crazy, because they would be like, we don't know what's going on, and that's not what you want to look like when you're supplying the AI that people are going to drive their businesses on, right?
Let me throw you a larger philosophical conversation here, because we used to have you felt like you were buying a software. You never did, because you signed a EULA that said you were buying a license to use the software. And it was once a year or every other year, 18 months, whatever it may be. And then we moved to this monthly pricing model. And it makes people more anxious, really, about the billing. Like, now you're becoming like cell phone companies, where I don't really find out what my bill is till at the end of the month. And you don't wonder what the hell happened. Right. As opposed to that periodic once a year, once every other year. Oh, it's going to be that much.
Something predictable.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you pay in advance as opposed to paying after the fact, where it's like,
I paid for this year. I'm good until next year. Yeah.
Exactly. And so maybe what we're really starting to feel here is the lashback against this model entirely. Like the company likes this model because it evens out their cash flow.
Well, this was the promise of cloud computing to begin with. I pay for the bandwidth I use, and when I'm not using it, I don't pay anything. It's beautiful. Right. So there's the other side of it too.
And so now you get back to this $30 a month or $10 a month is a flat rate, and you use it a lot, and you're getting a deal, and you don't use it at all, and you're just paying them for nothing. So, or if you got into consumption-based utilization,
it's a little bit like you have a cell phone plan, and you have like a gigabyte of data you can use in a month, and are there people on earth who, it's the 21st of the month, they've hit that limit and they're like, I guess I'm done for the month.
Yeah, no.
Maybe there are. I mean, maybe.
Right. Or you learn to taper off, whatever that may be. I mean, now, especially when we're talking about developers, like in theory, this is all stuff that's making money anyway. Like I'd like to see that my people are using more Copilot and getting more results for it. That means they're increasingly productive. So why wouldn't I pay more for that? Because my results get reflected.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all of these forces are working at once. I think that the developer tooling side in the Microsoft space has not moved fully to the SaaS model as it is. Most of the folks that I talk to are still buying annual or less than annual stuff for the developers.
Right.
They're not really in a monthly cycle. Some parts are, some parts aren't. And much less are actually consumption based. That's not there either.
It's and not helping matters. This AI stuff has just exploded this year, right? I mean, the types of capability. Like we'll talk a little bit about Adobe stuff that's going on, and they've released so many new features across their entire product line. These were the types of things they would have released over years before. Each one of these little things would have been the major feature this year in Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever. And this year it's like, here's 150 things in every single one of our products. And it's really hard to keep up.
Yeah.
It's kind of astonishing.
It's very, and one would argue these large language model interfaces make it easier for us to surface all of that stuff too. Like that should be beneficial as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, but I want to dig into your article about, is AI saving the industry or, effectively destroying it? The parallel I see is we had PCs before the internet, but would you use a PC without the internet today?
Okay, but the parallel also is we now have smartphones, and so would you use a PC today? So what I mean by that is that in the 7 stages of grief or whatever that occurred after Microsoft made their Bing AI announcements, I eventually came to this notion that if everything is AI, then nothing is AI.
Right.
And what I meant by that was it's just level sets everything. In other words, in the case of Google versus Bing, Google has 97% usage share, whatever it is, and Bing has nothing. And so now they both have AI. It's a couple of years later. Then that means Google will have 97% and Bing will have nothing. Because if you both have it, you're still the thing that you are.
Yeah.
And so people use you, right?
That's not actually what's happening, right? Microsoft appears to have a lead at the moment, which is an opportunity to get.
No, market. I'm talking it's just over time. I don't mean, right away. So my guess has been that when dust settles, Google will retain their dominance in the cloud and Microsoft.
I mean, therein lies the question. And I think Microsoft's play is if we're ahead, we have a chance to grab market share that we'll probably never get a chance to again because we haven't over the past 20 years. So
that's right.
Maybe now's the time.
So if we push this forward to the PC space, what's happened over the past 20 years is that 20 years, 15 years, whatever it's been, is that the iPhone happened and the smartphone revolution happened. And if you were to go back in time to literally 20 years ago, everything we did online and digitally, whatever, would occur in a PC, everything.
Right.
But now we have all these other devices. And so people split their time, or in many cases, they just use a phone, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, one would argue the smartphone is the most personal of computers.
Yeah, absolutely. You take it in your pocket with you. Absolutely.
It's the one that gives you cancer. It's excellent.
I know, but seriously, you're so productive.
Okay.
So in the time that you have left, you'll be so efficient. But the thing about the PC, and I actually like this because honestly, I'm really about productivity and efficiency and all that kind of stuff. It has forced the PC market to focus on the remaining strengths of that thing, which are all around productivity. Those times where you need a big screen, a real keyboard, and a mouse, and you're working with something complex like Photoshop or Excel or whatever, or you're writing
like more than one thing at once.
Yeah, I'm not going to write on a little thing. I don't care how young I am. I'm not writing a book that way. I'm sorry. So I like that because Microsoft went off the deep end with Windows 8. They tried to be like, look, we're like a mobile device too, and then they kind of came back to the desktop with Windows 10. They've been focusing on the things that this thing is good for. Mm-hmm. So the sort of rhetorical question I guess I'm posing here is, given that the mobile was ahead of the game with NPUs to begin with, we already see incredible AI advances that improve those things we were already doing on our phones, right? Across, digital photography is a good example. Like Google was showing off at their event, the ability to, tap and delete things in the background, that kind of thing. Google's talking about having the first local LLM on a device of any kind, personal technology device, with the Pixel 8 Pro, right? Which is kind of exciting. And they have all these ideas about, improving how responses work in text messages and yada, yada, yada. Okay, fun. But I guess what I'm saying is most people have a phone. Some people have a tablet. Some people have a PC. Yeah. They use those devices for very specific things. All of them will have AI. All of them will have access to AI services in the cloud and AI capabilities on the device. Microsoft is racing to add these things across their stack. And I guess what I'm sort of saying is, I think at the end of the day, so to speak, as they would say in the UK, in other words, when the dust settles, that the relative positioning of each of these platforms remains the same. Yeah. We will still use PCs for those complex tasks
because we want the big screen in the interface.
Because and now we'll do it better with AI, but you'll be doing the fun stuff better with AI on your phone. So
really the question will be, can these large machine language models perform better on different devices? One would argue, okay, I can run this on my phone, but my battery life is now 15 minutes.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know the answer. Listen, cell phones before the iPhone used to last for days. One of the greatest achievements of Apple with the iPhone was not the graphical user interface or any of the capabilities. It was getting people to accept really crappy battery life.
Yeah,
they have a watch that lasts a day. They have a phone. Well, the phone lasts 2 days now, but it's people kind of accept these things because they love this thing so much, right? Yeah. The stuff that they love about it is so much better than the things they kind of can't stand about it. The PC, unfortunately, like I remember when you used to personalize computers with little, like you could make your PC look like a Mac using like window blinds or whatever. And it was a big thing for a while. And it's not a big thing now because we do that stuff on our phones. Yeah. Like when we turn to our PC, we're working. And honestly, I mean, I'm into it, but it's not fun for most people. And they're not screwing around with stuff. Yeah. They don't really care. They just like get in, get the job done.
The question is, are other devices going to be more effective with these new interfaces? Like once the voice version is nailed, is it just going to be an earpiece?
Okay, let me reword that a little bit. Will the AI advances be so compelling or so powerful, right, that it might cause people to use the PC more than they are right now, right, and thus use the other mobile devices maybe less?
It's entirely possible. Because
it's possible, but that's like saying, is Bigfoot possible? It's possible.
No. Come on. At least we have a few big, it's not like I have a Bigfoot in this room, but I actually have several PCs.
If anyone does, though, it could be you.
I am literally.
You're in the right place. Yeah. But it's a little squatchy up there. That's all I'm saying.
It is an interesting question whether mobile or desktop is the natural place for this to happen.
Or if the shift is enough on the PC side that it could actually drive a shift in usage back to the way that it kind of used to be.
It depends what you're doing. I mean, for instance, now ChatGPT, which is running on my iPhone, I can talk to it. And some people are already getting this. I'm keep waiting for it.
But you can do that on your phone.
No, on my phone. I'm talking about it on my phone.
But when you want, right? So
that would be something that would lend itself. Look, Cortana died on the desktop. Well, I don't think we want to talk to our desktops.
That's right. So here, a couple of things to think about. First of all, mobile devices are getting more sophisticated, right? With the Chromebook and the iPads now, this thing could be a fun little consumption device, but you also, as a keyboard, you can do stuff and it can become sort of a light productivity device, which might be enough for most people. So that's a little bit of a threat, right?
You might make the argument that AI is going to save iPads, frankly.
Okay. I mean, yes. I mean, I'm not super concerned that happens.
The ability to compute a large language model on the device is important. Then that big old NVIDIA card in your PC is the best solution.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to think of like, what would people do with this stuff, right? So Google has this magic eraser feature, which is really powerful right now, and it's getting even more powerful. My problem with it is I'm 50 something years old. I look at my phone, it's like really small. I'm like trying to tap on the little guy, and it's hard to do. But most people can kind of handle that, you know? And the thing is,
this is not for you. This is for young people, Paul.
Well, no, I understand. But yeah, I wouldn't want to add people, frankly, to my pictures. But no, the issue is a solution I might have is not a solution, right? I could use Photoshop and do the same thing. Photoshop has wonderful AI magic things going on, but that's not a solution for people. And the thing is, that's kind of the point of AI, isn't it? It gives you access as a normal person to these kind of expert features. And if they figure it out, if you watch that Google demo, very interesting, right? They tap the car and it correctly fills all the little holes. It's not smudging. It's not, bad hair in a portrait mode. It's like literally working. That eliminates the need for powerful desktop tools for most people. It actually makes those PC use cases in some ways less necessary.
For the average case. Yeah.
Exactly.
Experts are experts. And really
always,
what a lot of these machine learning tools do is raise the average ability.
Yep. And I guess what I'm saying is so HP, Lenovo did their recent earnings announcement, I think back in August or September. They were like, yep, AI is going to be drive the wave. HP had an event in New York last week or the week before that I actually went to. And they were talking about this coming wave of MPUs and PCs, and they're going to become personal companions. And this is going to be the biggest upgrade spike since the rise of the internet in the 1990s, And will it? I mean, listen, I guess I sort of have a stake in it. So maybe I'll say I hope it does. Really, I just care about the PC as a platform, and I hope it does on that note. I don't know.
Can dumb Leo ask a question? I think it's been it's enough time between my last dumb question.
No, I think we're just gonna have to go with the Leo.
Is this going to be about Authenticator again? Because I don't really.
You talk about using a model on the device.
Yeah,
and I'm confused. So, for instance, I can run Stable Diffusion locally. I can even run it on my phone.
Yes.
Download what they call a model. And it's 1.6 gigabytes and run it on my phone and create
So images. If you have a GPU, it does stuff better. If you have an MPU, it does stuff even better.
So that's what you're talking about, running a model locally, or is there more? Or are you talking about creating a model?
At Google's Pixel event, right, which was last week, they talked about the Google Pixel 8 Pro will be the first phone that will have a local LLM.
This is what I'm confused.
And it will be used for.
How is that different from what I just did with Stable Diffusion on my iPhone a year ago? Or not a year ago.
Oh, because you had to add it yourself. Come on, Leo, it's built in. No,
actually, the big thing is from consumers' point of view, is on device, or do I have to call the cloud? Is that right?
And therefore, get your bill.
Right.
Yeah, and I think honestly, the real story here eventually is going to be better together, which means it will do what it can on the device, which always has to be a subset, right? They said this specifically. LLMs are a tough thing to talk about at a consumer event. But they said, look, obviously we're simplifying this thing. That's the point. But you do as much as you can on the device. So what are the types of things you might want to do on the device without having to have the latency to the cloud? Well, auto fix when you're typing, right? Auto fix after the fact, where you complete the sentence and it goes whoop and it just fixes the whole thing. More intelligent replies. We already have Gmail does this and text messages do this, but it's dumb, right? It's basically just a table of responses matched to some keywords they might see in something you typed, right? So you can say, thank you for that. And you just tap a button and it does it. But this will be more intelligent. It will actually be context aware. That kind of thing. The photography features are an obvious one as well. So you're never going to have something on your phone or your PC that's, completely isolated and offline and just as good as ChatGPT, but that's not necessarily the point. And for Microsoft and Google and these other companies, anything you can do locally that takes the stress off the data center in the cloud, not so, it's better together for them too, right? I mean, this is smart for them.
Possibly. I mean, in the end, they're in the business of selling cloud. Like they're not strongly incented to give us GitHub Copilot running slowly on our local machines.
No, but they are incented to have it not be a cost center, like something that costs them every single time.
Well, it costs more than they can charge. I mean, if they could charge and make money on it, then
right.
But let me, maybe I have an archaic way of thinking of this. So again, I need clarification.
Oh, man. Okay. But you know what bugs me about this?
I can go have lunch. I don't
more.
have to.
You know more about this than I do, and like now you're just messing with it.
I'm not messing with you. I have legit questions.
He walks into like a cafe and he's like, "So tell me, do you have different types of cheeses here?" It's like, "Yeah, it's France.
Tell me all the ice cream flavors you have."
40 years. Yeah, we have cheese.
There's 28 flavors. What are they?
One for every day.
And then you have, and I'll order vanilla. Yeah. Thank you very much. There's something that goes on called training, where it's big, and this has to happen usually on a cloud machine, because you need a lot of TPUs, you need a lot of data space, you need storage. That's the training, and that's a huge data. Like I'm doing all of the internet, and I'm building a model.
Yep.
And then one of the things Google talked about was how we're getting models smaller and smaller, small enough to put on your phone.
Yeah, but there's some.
But they're not training on the phone. They're training in the cloud. They always will.
Right. I thought you were going to ask me where they were training. My belief is they're trained before they get to the phone, and then there is and
then they shrink the model.
Updates that occur over time. Yeah,
and that's why, for instance, when you talk to ChatGPT in the old days, it would say, "I don't know anything after 2021. I'm sorry, I'm ignorant." Right. In fact,
Memento? Come on.
I don't know nothing. So what? I think it's Google maybe even trying to muddy the waters a little bit. So now we have these NPUs. That's what Microsoft calls them. Google calls them Tensor. We have these AI capable chips, which are similar, but not exactly the same as GPUs. Mm-hmm. But that's the chips you use to do training, right? Or do you need them for processing the model? No. You do it for the model as well.
It's just less processing to operate the model. But what we're finding with large language models specifically is that the operating resource is high too. It's not as high as training the model, but it is high.
But then that's on the phone. That's on the user. A lot of
radiation.
Yeah, but that ends up being on the user.
The phone could hold them. Yeah, nobody's meant to get a large language model running on a phone, as far as I know. Certainly not any of the big ones. They're big.
How big?
The terabytes.
Okay.
Wicked big.
But see, it's interesting because Apple has put itself, I think unwittingly, maybe they were smart, in a good position because these M1 chips and M2 and these new chips have NPUs.
The Apple, they've been talking NPUs for years.
Yeah.
And if you go back, if you could find it, I'm sure someone knows exactly what it was, right? So someday 5 years ago or something, Google talked about some new A series chipset for some iPhone and said, yeah, this part of the die is like an NPU. It's like a neural processing thing. It's for AI. And everyone's like, uh-huh. And it was like, okay, they're going to show us what it's for. And then they just moved on and never said anything about it again. We were all like, what? Okay, but what's the point?
Well, that's part of my confusion is like, which end of AI are you doing?
Yeah.
What exactly are you doing?
In Apple's case, I don't know. Well,
and Apple always wanted to do everything on device. But that's like their big word, on device.
Of course, because this is market privacy and you know what happens in your iPhone. But really,
more salently, because they missed the cloud opportunity, they didn't get there.
This
so they
and because they have on-device hardware that's pretty darn good.
And they have a developer API called AI Kit, right, which allows third parties to attack it. And I'm sure they were hoping, like with HoloLens and Microsoft, that some awesome AI thing would come out. And never did, really. I don't think. I don't know.
No.
But they also do their own things, and all that stuff that Google just showed off. You can guarantee Apple's going to be doing the same thing within the next couple of years, and they are in a good place because their chipsets are probably ideally suited to handle those things, those tasks, right?
Apple and Google are kind of in this race for computational photography, which is
and they both very explicitly use that term, which I find to be fascinating. Yeah. And they both do a great job, honestly. So every event almost, one will leapfrog the other in some way, and then next year comes and the opposite happens. We'll see. But this ties into my central point, which would tie it back to this original story, which was this stuff's been happening on the phone longer than it's been happening on the PC. I mean, I don't know. I think this is, like HoloLens or mixed reality when you have a headset on and you can't bring that to a museum and walk around a dinosaur skeleton and see the dinosaur, but you can with an iPad or a phone. And yeah, it's not as sophisticated, but you have it with you all the time. And I think that's still always going to be the
where the market. Now you get into the real.
This is where the point was originally: why PC versus smartphones. Or like we like the PC because of the bigger screen. We like the smartphone because it comes with us.
Right.
But also the PC can do more. So you can do, if you're a data analyst, and we're seeing more and more. That is a big part of business these days. That you might do on a PC using large models.
But that's a great example because it's so specific, it's so complex, and it requires expertise.
But you're not going to do it on a phone.
It's not the type of thing. Well, we'll see what the Pixel 9 looks like, Leo.
This is what the PC is. It's the truck. I mean, isn't it? I mean, that's what the PC is.
There is, yes.
It's for heavy lifting.
And I do think you guys there's orders of magnitude scale here. I mean, you're not going to even necessarily do that model on the PC. You're going to do it in the cloud because that's where your data is.
That's a good point too. Yep. Yeah. And look, honestly, from Microsoft's perspective, I appreciate the push they're making here for their PC maker partners mostly to put AI into Windows. I will point out that not so long ago, there was a big special event about AI. And did you walk away with any awesome new AI features coming on the PC? No. And that's a huge problem because I thought that was going to be the focus of that event. Yeah. And I'm like, so
I think it was essentially a naming event. We're now making Microsoft Co-pilot.
Which is, I'm so glad I traveled for that. But the point is, it's okay that they have an event for that. But I feel like we're getting to the point now where you need to show something where people, what's the AI, what's the killer app?
Yeah.
For AI on the PC? What is, I can tell you it's not background blur in a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. So what is it? Like what would make someone spend $1,500 or whatever on a new computer to get this thing? How do we go back to Windows 95? Where we're standing in line outside of a store at 12 o'clock in the morning, like it's a Call of Duty launch, and waiting to buy software that will install in floppies. Like what would make us do this?
Yeah.
I think
one would argue we haven't seen a killer app in large language models since ChatGPT gave us existential angst over Christmas.
Well, but you just talked about the Adobe stuff. That might be, a killer app for some.
Yeah.
I think
that's for creatives.
What has happened here, right? What you're telling me is AI is such a broad umbrella. There are many, many different uses. The way an AI
improves everything.
Well, it just would be used differently. If you're using, somebody in the Discord wants to know, can it be used on a HoloLens or a Vision Pro? Of course, but that's processing external input and making sense of it.
Almost the point, isn't it? If it's going to be everywhere, why would you use that thing?
Well,
you're
on the PC,
using it or you're not.
You would do heavy lifting. Right. You would do different stuff.
Yes. That's right.
If I've got, if it can write a pivot table for me, I'm happy.
Right. So, but my point is the fact that you can't have something auto-write a pivot table for you doesn't matter, because if you do need a pivot table, you're still using a PC, right? You're not doing that on your iPhone.
Right.
So the difference is you might need an expert, you might need a class, you might need to watch a YouTube video, whatever it might be. I mean, the goal here is that AI makes it easier and it lets you do it. And there's no doubt that's cool, but it doesn't.
It's too highly skilled, you're saying.
No, it just doesn't change the equation. You're still using the PC for certain things.
Yeah.
They're the same things. Right. I get, like, if there was some killer app where for some reason, I can't even imagine what it could be, but it will only make sense on the PC or only work on the PC, and it could drive more PC usage and drive upgrades, then celebration.
And what is it?
But what is that thing? And
I would argue with it. I would argue that large language models are better served on the PC because they do need to be fact-checked, because they are creative devices that you need to interact with. And the phone just doesn't offer enough real estate to do that. If you want to ask a large language model for information it doesn't have, and it spits out a confident answer that's incorrect, and you send it onward, a phone is that.
So, what you're saying, Paul, is that
get it right.
The new and exciting uses of AI are all on mobile, smaller devices.
No. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to suggest that. I what I'm saying is that as a society, as a people, as a race or whatever, we use certain devices for certain things. Phones are used way more than computers. They just are. Some people have tablets too, and they use them for whatever they use them for. Some people use tablets as PCs. So we don't have to get into the weeds here. But most people the personal computer is a phone. It's not a PC, and the PC is like this work thing. And so what I'm saying is AI happens. It's an explosion. It occurs everywhere. There's so much. Every product and service we use is enhanced with AI across every device we use. And now it's 2 or 3 years later, and here we are. We're pure brains, and we have, we're floating above the ground, whatever it is. And I'm saying when the dust settles, we'll still be using phones most of the time, and we'll still be using PCs the exact amount of time we're using them today, or less,
for the same
because there are these other
things.
factors.
Yeah, now I would argue large language models will be more heavily used on the PC because the things that large language models are good at are better served on the PC.
Yeah,
but
you're going to
writing, coding. All of those things are better served.
You can do photo editing on your phone, but Paul's not going to do it. He's going to use Photoshop. He's going to do it on PC.
But the big but here is these devices are getting more sophisticated. We're not that far. You can right now with the new iPhones plug them into an external display. You can plug them into a dock, and you can plug them into a external storage and record videos right to it in 4K. if all you really need is a bigger screen and a keyboard and a mouse, then I'm telling you, this phone is probably power enough to handle that.
I don't know that it is, just because it's because you have an MPU on board doesn't mean it's an equal MPU to the giant.
Okay, no, fair enough. But again, I think we're almost splitting hairs in a way, because I don't. Nothing we're saying is universal. I don't mean all people. I mean,
but I do think you're missing order of magnitude differences, right? Okay. You're talking about a couple of thousand compute units in an M1 versus 70,000 in a 4090. Like they're vastly different.
Okay. I mean, we'll see.
The model is similar, and without a doubt, like we're going to shrink the models, but it's like Stable Diffusion is a hugely three times smaller than an LLM model.
All right, but again, just to bring it down to stupid level for me, the question remains: will that be enough to shift the pattern of usage between these device types?
No, but that wasn't the question. The real question was like, what's going to benefit from this work more? And the kinds of work you do on a PC, like writing and code, will benefit more well with LLMs. And there's relatively few things that work as well on a phone.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, like I said, I did go back to that Photoshop, magic eraser example. They're probably most of the people who are just people, just like not experts, they're not creative professionals, whatever, but they keep an old copy of Adobe Photoshop Elements around or whatever it is, because every once in a while, or all the time, they want to bring in their little collection of photos from their phone and edit things and do whatever it is. And as those tools get better on the phone, and as those people die, frankly, there'll be fewer reasons for average people to use a computer for those tasks. And also, the iPad in particular, but Chromebook too. I mean, as these things get more sophisticated, there are these alternate platforms that are simpler.
You're all playing a volume game. They also don't edit photos all day long.
I'm just trying to keep it super simple. That as an example of the broader, that's all. I don't mean people. Actually, I think most people don't edit photos at all, frankly. So yes, I'm just using it as an obvious example.
Yeah. But what's interesting to me with talking to folks that are working heavily in LLMs is that many of the things that it's great at are creative things that need those larger devices.
You know what people do?
No, sure.
They categorize photos. And what's happened is we've moved from using Google Photos and server-based categorization to local categorization, whether it's on a PC or even on a phone. But remember I told you about Milio, one of our sponsors. I just now let it tag everything.
Right. Yeah. And how does that work?
Great. And it's all local.
Yeah.
It's not in the cloud.
Right.
So that's a big shift. And in fact,
as big of a shift as it was from you had some device, which was probably a digital camera back in the day. You plugged it into a wire, put it on your PC.
Yeah.
Then you used some organizational
and started typing in tags.
Picasa, a great example.
Do you know what's interesting about that tagging scenario, Leo, is like Facebook did this ages ago. And we all got creeped out by it.
Right. That's the difference because it was on Facebook.
Right.
That's the whole thing is it's acceptable. We want automated tagging.
I'll go one more step.
Like we're in control of it, right? It's local.
I'll go one more step. And I think this Milio is a good example for this. Milio works on both my desktop and my phone. A lot of the work I do on the desktop, for instance, I think probably most of the tagging is happening on the desktop, but then propagates to my phone. Well, so there's a symbiotic relationship, and it doesn't even matter where the AI is.
Is there a sync that occurs? So you've done a lot of maybe.
I don't even think about it.
I mean between the devices. In other words, if you do most of that work on the PC, and then you're on your phone, does it benefit from all the work that occurred? Yes,
absolutely.
Then there you go. So now your phone.
It's a symbiosis.
Yeah,
but I would argue that what Milio's pulled off is making you comfortable with that capability. The thing that Facebook,
because it's local.
Right. Yeah, well,
and by the way, it's a lot better than Facebook because it does. Yeah. I mean, like it says, swimming pools. Like, I mean, I didn't ever think of categorizing swimming pools. Google Photos did that, which was cool.
Sure.
And the fact that it is local and is on my desktop and my phone means I don't care where the workload is.
No, because you trust them.
Yeah, but also in terms of horsepower, I don't care because if I have it on a desktop at the desk. Well, it's interesting because I was uploading some photos to Facebook actually. And some of them were not on my phone.
This Leo Laporte, Facebook user persona going on. I'm a little uncomfortable.
It's a new Leo.
It's I don't know what's happening. Where's
it was because of this horrific thing in Israel and the amount of misinformation and active disinformation that was propagating on X. I really wanted to keep an eye on where are people talking. And Facebook has really deprecated news. They don't want you to be sharing news anymore. But you might be sharing news about your family in Israel.
Right.
And so for that reason, I thought, as much as I'm kind of creeped out by Meta, it's not like I have anything that's private anymore anyway. And I need to kind of keep watch what's happening there because I think there is something happening there. It's also because I'm old. And us olds really like Facebook, I got to tell you.
Yes, for sure.
It's where your social graph is.
As my kids often point out, they only get notifications from Facebook because I put them in photos.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, Dad's at it again.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, this whole conversation about AI is so great. And I did want to point our club members to our new show, which we do in the club. Jason and Jeff Jarvis. AI Inside. The show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, will be with Dan Patterson. And disinformation is actually going to be the topic. He's an expert on that. So that will be just a little plug. If you're not a member of Club Twit, ad-free versions of all of our shows available at twit.tv/clubtwit. $7 a month gets you inside the Discord, gets you all these special shows. Paul does a hands-on Windows show, which is really good. Have you finally finished Clip Champ?
I did, yeah. It was only 3 episodes.
But you know what? That's 3 great episodes if you want to know about Clip Champ.
It was like when the Brady's went to Hawaii. Sometimes you go and you do a thing.
Twit.tv/clubtwit. It helps us out a lot, keeps us on the air, and we thank you in advance. I just want a little plug for that. Still more to talk about with AI. I think Dropbox, yes? I don't mean, or you want to talk about Firefly, because we did mention this.
Honestly, both of these I would just say very quickly. So for creative professionals, I'm sure you're already up on what's going on with Firefly and Photoshop and how they're indemnifying and using their trusted data and blah, blah, blah. So they're touting that they're like the fastest growing AI image generation model with over 3 billion images generated, 1 million in the last month alone. And they have an annual event called Adobe Max, at which they announced approximately 1,500 new AI features across the whole stack. And by the way, there is more coming from Adobe this month. It's not just the stuff that happened today. It's not even worth discussing in a way. I guess the way to say it is, when OpenAI moved to DALL-E 3 and then Bing Image Generator used that model for theirs and the quality level went up, they are doing the same. So they've just done that. But they also have 2 new additional model, one just for vector graphics, right? The first generative AI model for vector graphics in Illustrator, of course. And then something called a Firefly design model, which I have to say, this one gives me a little pause, but it's for creating in Adobe Express, which is a free product, by the way, the ability to create templates for social media posts, marketing assets, and that kind of stuff. Using generative AI, and it's like, here we go. We're going to get the GAI based advertising is coming down the pike. So,
I appreciate that they're doing targeted models. It's not just art.
Yeah, that's right.
Graphics and social media, like making the model smaller and more precise.
There's going to be, and there is. I mean, there already is, but going forward, there's going to be even more of this. We have to, as people, as customers or consumers, or whatever, kind of see what companies are doing with AI and sort of rate it and determine if it's valid or not. These are really good use cases. Adobe is a company that I just never considered, and they are tackling this thing head on, and they're kind of kicking ass, frankly. I think in their own in their own benchmark.
Their bailiwick is threatened, right? Like they call their product Creative Cloud for a reason, and if they are not on board with this, they can only lose market share.
Now, that said, here's an example of maybe the other side of this, which is Dropbox, right? So Dropbox, to me, it's cloud storage, obviously, but primarily. I sort of think of them as plumbing. Like, I don't look to my cloud service provider for services per se, other than the obvious, right? Storage, and but they're applying AI to their clients basically, and they did some back earlier in the summer. They're adding more now. That's going to happen over time. So it's things like summarizing text-based files, right? Summarizing audio and video content, helping users find relevant content using search with natural language, right? So Leo had made the point earlier about using that tool, Milo, is it called, to tag people.
Sponsor.
Myleo, sorry. Yes. So, Google Photos, for example, or now I guess Dropbox soon, you're searching for, it could be a document, it could be a picture, my son Mark in Rome, that kind of thing. And have the results actually be only pictures of him in that place. And you could even have more complicated natural language searches. So they're working on stuff like that. It's like, okay, I guess so.
One thing I noticed with Myleo, they're doing OCR on text and pictures, so I can search for
which is another thing you see.
Text.
Yes.
OCR is AI, right? I mean,
I tried to. So I actually. So yesterday, there's a famous taco stand in Mexico City called Los Cocoyos. It's famous. It's on all the TV shows and YouTube things you see about this city. But I wanted to look up some of the items on their menu. It's all in Spanish, obviously. So they have items like you can get tacos made of eyes and brains and cheeks and cabeza, head, all different head pieces. So there's the kind of like common meats, and then there's the kind like a lot of people would be like, "Ooh, I don't know what that is." And I tried to actually search for in Google. It didn't work. I searched for the term cabeza, knowing that I had a photo of this menu, and it did not come up.
That's
so I didn't eventually find it. But that's a hugely useful thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
the only reason I bring it up is it's a way AI has already entered our lives.
Oh my God! Yes. Yep.
And I think eventually we're not going to even really make the distinction.
Notice. Yeah. Well, that's fine because most of it maybe isn't even AI, right? I mean, spell checking or grammar checking,
language models. Yeah. Like it's just software. Just more software.
There you go. Yeah, it's capability, basically.
Software is still eating the world.
Yeah, right. That's right. Now, literally through our data centers.
But I mean, our OneDrive's been up to this stuff for a while too. It feels to me like Dropbox is responding to what OneDrive.
They all have to do it. And actually, that was part of that article I wrote about, PCs versus whatever. It was like this, one of the phrases you can use, and I did, is it's table stakes, right? You can't not do this. If you're Box or Dropbox or whatever these companies are, you can't be the one that doesn't do this.
I would also argue that we have a generation of folks that are using these storage mechanisms that aren't concerned about folders and hierarchies and organizing data. And if you don't make your search good enough, they really can find their stuff.
That's right. Yeah, I did a Google takeout of my Google Photos collection a while back, and I just copied it to a laptop. It's 577 gigabytes or something. And it is organized it is not organized, actually. That's just the best way to say it. It's not organized. And that's why. Because when you go to Google Photos, there are no folders. It's just
whatever you think.
Just search. You search. That's all you do. You can navigate by time in kind of a manual way, but you search, and it usually works pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're going to start indexing stuff by OCRing text inside a video and things like that, more power to it. Anything that helps me find my stuff,
I know, it's incredible. That's great. I really think that's.
Do I appreciate that OneDrive itself keeps popping up in the corner of my screen to show me things I don't care about?
Please don't get me started. It's a little early. Let's
go away.
Hold on to that thought. We're going to get to that. Get to it.
All right. Let me take a little break because we do have another advertiser. Believe it or not. And we should really acknowledge that and celebrate them. But that was our AI segment, right? Anything more?
That is it.
Okay.
That's the kit.
Xbox still coming up. Some brown liquor, I'm sure. It's funny. Where were we? We were in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And the bar was well stocked with Crown Royal. And Lisa said, "What's the deal with Crown Royal?" I said, "We're near Canada, baby."
Yeah, true.
We are next door.
Little ginger ale, very happy.
Yeah, they even had Green Bay Packer Crown Royal bottles.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a cross-border exchange, a cultural exchange. Our show today brought to you by. I'm sorry, I should never do that. You don't talk like that.
I don't.
Actually, they do in Green Bay, which was really, Really weird. Lisa said, does she have a Canadian accent? I said, no, dear. That's how they talk here. Our show today is brought to you by Cashfly. Yeah. For over 20 years, Cashfly has held the track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery, serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. Organizations consistently choose Cashfly for scalability, reliability, and unrivaled performance. You know what organizations do that? We do. Cashfly's our CDN. Cashfly's revolutionary storage optimization system. Oh, if you have a website, this is, or any kind of, content like ours, this will ensure your holiday season remains jolly. The SOS, Storage Optimization System, creates private partitions on the Cashfly drives that are yours, dedicated entirely to you, providing 100% bandwidth to ensure your content remains king. 100%. No more caching. No more content misses. It's all cached. It's all there. Keep your data and content primed, closer to your customers, maintaining optimal speeds. No more cache misses, ensuring quick content delivery. And this is global, no matter where your customers are. Even Canada. Of course, Canada. Actually, they're really building out in South America now, which is great. Really great. Let Cashfly, I love it because all of our content sits on those partitions in their SOS, their storage optimization system. So when you go to download this show, no matter where you are in the world, you're going to get it fast, direct. It's one of those things you don't notice except if you don't get it. So you may say, well, I never thought about it. That's just what we want. We don't want you thinking about it. We just want that podcast to end up on your device, ready to play the minute you want it. Let Cashfly supercharge your images, too. If you've got a website, watch your web content soar to new heights of efficiency and performance. Jump on board with Cashfly's smart image optimization service. Give your audience the seamless, lag-free experience they deserve, no matter what size screen they're on. By keeping our content on the edge, with Cashfly, we ensure that delivery speed is instantaneous. You want this. Add Cashfly's VOD, video on demand cache layer to your mix, and you will see a transformative reduction in loading times. You could say goodbye to the buffer and blues. Goodbye, buffer and blues. Immediately and permanently drive your cache hit ratio to 100% using Cashfly's VOD cache. With Cashfly, you get so many benefits. I'll go through them real quick because you've heard me say this before, and all I can really say is we've been using this for more than a decade. We love it. You will love it. You get ultra-low latency video streaming, delivering video to over 1 million concurrent users. You get lightning-fast gaming. Downloads are faster, zero lag, zero glitches, zero outages. And people like Paul Thurrott, they don't like that lag. They don't want that lag. Mobile content optimization offers automatic and simple image optimization. That means your site loads faster on any device. It's the only CDN built for throughput. You can deliver rich media content up to 10 times faster than traditional delivery methods, 30% faster than other major CDNs. Flexible month-to-month billing. This is nice, too, because usage of this kind of spiky, right? So you may not know. What you don't want to do is pay for the max every day. So what you can do is have flexible contracts until you figure that out, and then you get discounts. Once you're happy, you get a discount for a fixed term. But you get to design your contract when you switch to Cashfly. That's what we did. It was really helpful, especially in the early days when we didn't have any idea, what's this going to cost? With Cashfly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP treatment. You get a dedicated account manager that will be with you from day one, ensuring a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when needed. They've been fantastic. Twit's been using Cashfly for over a decade. Believe me, we've been approached by many others. No, we love Cashfly. For October, jumpstart your journey with Cashfly. A complimentary free month awaits, or give it a whirl with a free 5 terabyte account. Go to cashfly.com/twit. That's October only, so quickly. Cashfly.com/twit. You've heard me say it a million times. Bandwidth for in this case, Windows Weekly, is provided by Cashfly at CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you, Cashfly. Now back to the show. Paul, Richard Campbell, Paul Thurrott, and more great stuff. This time we're going to talk a little bit about developers.
Yeah,
or
just
not
one developer.
I don't want to. I don't want to make you do anything. Of course,
there was one little developer story. Well, actually, I didn't write about this, but .NET 8 RC2 is available. Final RC, final release next month. Okay.
Now the week of November 14th is .NET Conf. So that's
right. Virtual events
for .NET 8,
etc.
Yeah, but RC2 is the usual last.
Yeah, and the very regular cadence on the pre-release milestones. So bang, bang, bang.
Preferably annually. Yes.
Yep. But the thing I did write about was C# Dev Kit is now available in generally available. So it's like a non-preview version. This is for Visual Studio Code, and this is the extension that adds a kind of a fuller set of C# capabilities to Microsoft's coding editor. And it supports a subset of the I guess workloads that one might do in full Visual Studio. You're not going to write your next great Windows Form app in Visual Studio Code.
You don't. Yeah, you don't get the designer that way.
Right. But it's good for web apps, ASP.NET or whatever they're calling that these days, or what do you call it? Blazor, probably Blazor Web, I think.
Yeah, or any other kind of web development too. I mean,
any web dev.
The dev kit brings to the table.
And .NET MAUI though, right? So
MAUI's visible that way, but that's also
very interesting. Yeah.
It's really, to me, it's about the project management side, right? That we have this concept inside of Studio called a solution, and largely it's just a set of file and some hierarchy.
Right.
And really, code didn't have any visibility into that. So it was very hard to have a mixed dev environment with some folks in code and some folks in Studio. Right. And this makes it easier.
Yeah, right. It does add a little bit of solution support, I guess. Code is typically like a folder-based solution for projects, which is standard in the web developer world, but not typical in the.
But yeah, if you've got a studio shop and you've got some folks who don't want to live in Studio, they want to live in code. Now your life's a little easier.
Yep. Yeah. So that's cool. And then and that's it. So as far as Xbox, actually, we do have a bunch of things this week, finally. And the big one is, there were reports that Microsoft should be closing this Activision Blizzard acquisition on Friday. So in 2 days from now, on the 13th. And
they don't need to extend anything again.
We'll see. There's also a rumor that occurred during the show. I just saw it when Leo was doing the ad read that the EU is not going to re-examine their approval of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And there was a chance they were going to, because it looked like they might have changed the terms a bit when they did their UK concession. But we don't have an official statement on that, so it's kind of hard to say. So my expectation was that they were going to do this in July, but maybe in 2 days. So
maybe October's enough.
Yep, October's close enough.
Well, and the fact that Codic's planning the party is sort of
right.
Sounds like we're good.
Yeah, and then to the Bobby Kotick stuff and the internal stuff happening at Activision. One of the things that came out of that was they said that the two big blockbuster games of this season for Activision Blizzard, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 and Diablo 4, will not be coming to Game Pass this year. When the Activision goes through. They're starting to talk a lot about Game Pass, which is kind of fun because Activision could not have given two craps about this thing before, or any other subscription service, frankly. And they make billions on some of these games, including Call of Duty, with their traditional release model. So, but Microsoft's going to change things up, and we'll see how that impacts these games, because that's a big revenue driver for them around this time every year. And if they put it in Game Pass, how does that change things?
Sure.
And that
the other side of this, what if you only sold it in Game Pass? How many more Game Passes would you sell?
Right. So somebody in the Discord chat, I apologize, I don't remember the name, asked a question really upfront, like 2 hours ago, about Game Pass. And the question was whether, concerning developer payouts, and any information about that specifically in the recent Xbox leaks? And if so, is it bad? Like, is Game Pass bad for devs? Is it subsidized? Like, what are they doing there? Right. So there was nothing in the memos that spoke to how Microsoft pays different types of game makers or pays for different types of games in Game Pass. There was nothing specific, but there was a fascinating bit that came out of it. Was a March 2020 meeting or presentation that Phil Spencer gave on behalf of the Xbox team to Microsoft's senior leadership team. And he came, there is Newman. Sorry, I forgot your name there. He came out of that meeting a little confused because it was very clear that they didn't understand the video game market at all. So he wrote this long memo where he said, it looks like I'm going to have to explain what game publishers are and like how this works. And so he kind of stepped through that. I'm not going to bore you with that. It's ridiculous. But he basically said that Game Pass was about distribution, right? That back in the day, when you used to develop software and put it on a disk and put it in a store, those were your distribution endpoints. And now now it's online. It's easy. They can do it directly in some cases, or they do it through the console makers or through Steam or whatever. The online stuff is the distribution point. Game Pass, in his view, was additive, right? And he wanted, and this is, again, you got to remember, it's like 3.5 years ago. He wanted Game Pass to be a place where AAA game makers put their stuff on day one. And to drive that, Microsoft has since ensured that all of their in-house games, day one, come out on Game Pass. They're the only company that does this. No one, not one has agreed to do this. Only they have. But his argument was that, Netflix disrupted video. And if you think about it, you're a movie maker or you're going to make a TV series. Where's the money coming from? Like, what is it? What makes sense? So now you see like Harrison Ford and Meryl Streep and whoever you can name, Ryan Reynolds, they're making things that go to Netflix or Hulu or whatever. Yeah. And why is that? And some of, frankly, a lot of it has to do with money. So, right, it's money, but it's also audience, right? This the pandemic kind of helped this notion that people aren't going to theaters as much as they used to, of course. And this is a way to reach a mass audience. And Phil Spencer wants that to be true for Xbox Game Pass. And they've kind of lived the message by putting their own AAA games on the platform. So the question is, has this worked? And the answer is no. And part of the problem is, see, once you move to an online distribution system, a lot of these companies are huge, right? Activision Blizzard is huge. EA, Ubisoft, whatever the company is, a lot of them have they start their own services, right? So EA has their own subscription service. Ubisoft does, Ubisoft Plus. Those two companies have partnered with some of the bigger players. Ubisoft partnered with Amazon. EA has partnered with Microsoft. So as part of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, you gain access to EA Play, right? So all the titles that are in there. Activision Blizzard, Bobby Kotick, whatever, I can't explain it, decided to go their own route and they just do their own thing, right? So their model is sort of a subscription, but for things like, they've changed it up over the years, but for things like Call of Duty, back in the day, you would buy a game, Call of Duty, and then for $60, and then over the course of the next year, you would buy these. Something just exploded in my kitchen. I'm sorry. And then you would buy.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to go see what that was. Something happened, but
okay.
It's probably not the Russians coming through the wall, but it sounded like it. Sorry, I lost my track of thought. What they would do is download DLCs, right? So 4 times a year, they would sell you these DLCs. And then they were like, the problem is not everyone's buying all the DLC. So we'll have like an annual thing. So you can buy the game for $60 and then you can buy all the DLC at once for $60 and you'll get it over the next year. It's $120. And people are like, that's a lot of money. And I don't know, blah, blah, blah. So now they kind of build it. The game's $70 and you get the whole thing and you get all the DLC, and it's just kind of the way it is now. But it's sort of a subscription model because you are buying it every year in many cases, right? When the game is successful, it's not something that applies to all of their games. So as far as like what they're paying them and like what's the real value of Game Pass, it's evolved. But honestly, the Netflix model is pretty good. They're still trying to attract AAA and failing, right? Meaning the new Ryan Reynolds movie would go to Netflix instead of the theater or to some other service, right? So they're trying. They still want that. But it's also a place for I don't know what the right term for this is, but it's like catalog content. So they've gone to a lot of developers and said, hey, look, you've made 20 games over the years and only one of them is current. Let's take the other 19 and put them on Game Pass. And here's the idea. You will make money from this. You will. It might not be a lot. We have no idea, but it will be more than zero, and zero is what you're making now.
Right.
And is there a value to that? Like, when Netflix first started, and it was like, they were still shipping DVDs in the mail, but then they had this online service. The stuff that was on Netflix was terrible, right? It was all B movies and lower than B movies. It was terrible. Yeah. And it's something that improved in quality over time, but it was a way to distribute B movies from the 80s, the 90s, whenever that, let's face it, no one was buying these things on disc. No one saw them anywhere. It was a distribution point. It became, there was a volume of content, right? And Game Pass has absolutely achieved that. But also, I would say through the acquisition of so many studios, Microsoft now has much better quality content there as well. Yeah. So honestly, there's a value there. So I don't know what they pay, but there's basically Microsoft has looked at the world as it was, the world that it is. The world that is subscription. Ubisoft, EA are examples of two companies that are just making their way in the subscription world on their own because they're big enough to do it. We talked about Steam.
The original.
Yep. Great. And they have their own model. It's just a different thing. It's the biggest online store in Windows, like we were saying. Yeah. And they don't do ads. They don't do promos. They don't, they just.
I would argue Steam's problem now is that it's Gabe Newell and his friends, still a privately held company. At least Gabe's a billionaire. Like none of those guys are trying that hard anymore.
No, they're not trying hard at all, which I can tell you from the absence of Half-Life 2 Episode 3, which is a 25-year-old gripe
never
of mine.
That's not going to
and damn them for that. But
because making online subscription-based games was worth so much more money.
Right.
The team that was
just dropped everything and moved.
They made Dota 2, and they're still making more money annually on Dota 2 than they would make on a single release of Half-Life.
I'm just saying art still should take precedence.
I don't disagree, and I'm sad. I wanted that story to be rounded out.
Yeah. So, but for Xbox Game Pass, think about how it's expanded, right? It began just on the console. It expanded to PCs. There's an ultimate one that spans both and adds this cloud gaming thing, which, not great, but a way to access the games you already made in many cases on more places, right? So Xbox Game Pass just by itself is another distribution point, but they've kind of expanded it out to multiple distribution points. So the value is there. I don't know what they pay them, right? I can't say it's good, but
you're paralleling like Netflix and the other subscription servers for media to the video game industry, and I totally buy that. But I would argue the most sophisticated version of that would be the MCU with Disney. So you have your marquee blockbuster Iron Man and Avengers and so forth. And then in between you have, the Winter Soldier and the Falcon, like those kinds of miniseries that were only released on Disney.
Yes.
I wonder if we do this
right. So
I wonder if there could be blockbuster games that you pay additional for, but because you're also on Game Pass and you get these interstitial games, maybe smaller things.
I do wonder in the case of the MCU that once the theater market kind of collapsed, whether this entire ecosystem doesn't make any sense anymore because it relied on these tentpole movies that were humongous, billion plus, whatever. And now you don't really have that. And it's like now we have cute little TV shows like Loki 2 or whatever. And you're like, okay, but
these miniseries are also making money and they tell stories more detail and you build a fan base.
It is, well, you're serving the fan base. It's such an ideal thing for people who love this stuff.
And that's the whole thing is like, and if you, then they drop these little nuggets in the big blockbusters that unless you'd seen second season of Loki, you didn't know what that was about.
Yep.
That's the part of the fun of being in the club. Yeah. Now, I wonder if we couldn't go down that path. The closest thing I would say to that today is Assassin's Creed.
Is what? Assassin's Creed. Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Why?
Just because it's got a thread through all of its different games.
Oh, I see. Right. I'm sorry. It's a coherent series of games that has a
coherence, a stretch related.
Okay.
The problem is that each of their games has to get bigger and more expensive. And like, we're at this problem now where it's too expensive to make the blockbuster game.
So unfortunately what they do is, we have movies like Godzilla versus King Kong or that kind of schlock. And the video game version of that is the guy from Halo's in Fortnite this week, or whatever. You have these little crossover episodes. It's like, okay.
The thing is you could do it badly, but hey, if I had a big brand, and I'm not going to bet an A-class game and all of the marketing against that. Well, but if a team wants to do an experiment, but they still want to use the brand, now I do that miniseries effect, a littler game that's only.
So expanding Xbox Game Pass the way they did is smart for Microsoft too, right? Part of the idea here is that Xbox was a console and now it's this stuff. Yeah. So it behooves Microsoft to expand this ecosystem, obviously.
I've noticed but it's also Game Bar instead of Xbox Game Bar, right? Like they are thinking bigger.
Yeah, and it makes it more attractive to game makers, I would think. Yeah. The biggest ones can ignore it because they're huge, right? They don't care. But for everyone else, which is 90-something% of the market, this could be or could be more attractive as it expands out. And if, God help us, we ever get mobile game stores going on, Apple and Android or whatever, and then all bets are off. Xbox could become a very viable ecosystem.
Yeah, but what if it makes more sense for you to write your game and just distribute on Game Pass? You take a portion of that payment than it is to try and sell it any other way.
Right. That's my point. I don't. But the problem is I can't say that it is. But I think we can. Like for example, there's been one of the big stories with streaming is over the past couple of years. There's been a lot of blockbuster releases. I'll just pick on Netflix of high quality. Like meaning well made or with highly rated or well-known actors, movies and TV shows that are really kind of crappy, right? They're actually kind of bad. They're super well made, but they're like not very good.
Ryan Gosling in The Gray Man? Something like that?
I've not seen that one, but Ryan Reynolds in anything or Gal Gadot anything,
ow.
Don't mock my Deadpool, man.
Holy cow.
I'm just saying. And so the question here is, obviously, it was worth it to those actors. Obviously, it was worth it to the director or the movie studio, whoever did this. The question is, did it make sense to Netflix? Did it work?
Yeah.
Did they drive more usage? Did they, make more money? And I think the jury's out at best. And I think, honestly, those movies did not do great for them. But I don't know. I just don't know.
It's a great question. But it does open a room for things other than just blockbusters that you can do.
Yes. And God, seriously, don't we need that? That's honestly, before COVID, that was what was wrong with the theaters. It was all Marvel movies.
Right.
They stopped making mid-level movies. They stopped making little romances.
Video games, you had the same problem. You had the half a dozen to a dozen $1 billion titles a year and indie games. And nothing.
If you're suggesting that Call of Duty in any way impacted the world negatively, I'm just going to have to take a stand on that one. But yes, you're probably right.
Are you still cold turkey on that?
I have news on that front. I turned on my Xbox for the first time since early March the other day, 2 days ago.
Wow.
I
4 hours later. Yeah.
It took a long time. I updated Call of Duty. I pre-ordered the next Call of Duty because it's all classic maps but redone. And they're the best maps. This is like the high point in the whole series. I have not actually played a game on it yet. I guess I will.
Had it unplugged for months. It's got a lot of updates.
It took a little while. I noticed the dashboard wasn't any better despite 18 updates to that. So anyway, I'm going to look at the new Call of Duty. I have to, and I'm going to do it on an Xbox.
It's his job. It's his job, Stephanie. Just got to live with it.
All those phones.
Yeah.
All the phones.
You'll never believe what happened next. Nothing. I didn't play any games, but
never
I will
saw him again. We never.
Yeah. There will be a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 beta coming. Hopefully before I go to Mexico. Actually, there's only 2 more days, so we'll see soon. Right? I think that's happening soon.
Oh, you're not going to bring your Xbox to Mexico?
No, I am not bringing my Xbox.
Not do that. That would be crazy talk.
Okay. Diablo 4 coming to Steam, not coming to Xbox Game Pass. Hilarious, but that's 2 different things, right? That's a standard,
It is a Blizzard game though, which is funny. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Owned by
transition
Microsoft.
period. I mean, Nokia released some Android phones right before they were bought by Microsoft. I mean, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
No, I mean, Xbox put some games on Steam too, by the way. There's some partnership there. Forza Motorsport is out. This is the new version of their racing game. It's on everything with an Xbox label on it. So PC, Game Pass, blah, 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 whatever.
It's even my lock screen.
It's on. That's how you know it's there. Mm-hmm. And then 2 Sony things. So Sony yesterday, I think, announced a smaller PS5 in the sense that the planet Uranus is smaller than the planet Jupiter. I mean, it's smaller, but it's still really big version of the PS5.
One of them tilted on its side.
Yeah, it's not cost reduced. It actually costs more. And you can get it optionally with an optical drive. So now instead of having 2 models, they have 1 model, and then sometimes they bundle them together. But you can buy it separately. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
With the optical drive exactly? What is that?
Play Blu-rays, pretty much. I mean, you could go to a store and buy discs. I don't know who would do that, but you could. I still don't understand why it looks like a spaceship from a Star Trek movie.
I don't know.
Okay, honest to God, Uranus is a lot smaller than Jupiter. Someone says, "Thank you, Doctor Scientist." Shut up. Anyway, they're two big planets. That was my point. I meant Saturn. I guess I don't know. It doesn't matter.
No, you were right. Uranus and Jupiter.
They're so big. They're both big guys. That's just big planet.
Okay. Uranus has a very significant, axial tilt. So that's why I said one.
Okay. Thank you for having my back. And then there will be a PS5 cloud streaming service coming out of Sony later this year, before the end of the year. There's already something through. If you have PlayStation Plus, which is one of their, well, actually, I think they're only now subscription service, you can stream older PlayStation games, but this is going to be the first time that you'll be able to stream like current gen games, and it will only be available to PS5 owners, right? You won't be able to stream the new games to the old console, which interestingly is something Microsoft does allow, right? So if you have an Xbox One and you play you have a Game Pass, you can play Flight Simulator, which is not available on that platform. It's only available on Xbox Series S and X. And that's kind of a cool thing that Sony's not doing, jerks. But that's fine. It's $18 a month, $160 a year. It's starting later this month in Japan. Europe's coming after that. And then the end of October for North America. So Canada and United States. I don't know Mexico, but at least Canada and the United States.
Hey.
Yeah, that's cool. And there you go.
Well, that was the most thrilling, exciting, and provocative Xbox segment we've had all week.
Okay. Well, that really took the air out of my balloon. You're fine.
Just teasing. Hey, we are going to do the back of the book next. What do you say? You're listening to Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. It is now my duty to hand you over to Paul Thurrott so he may do with you as he wills. Paul?
Yeah. I don't know how much I got into this last week, if at all, but as part of it's sort of a combination of me working on that digital decluttering stuff and then getting ready for 23H2 so I can write about it in the book, getting that on all my PCs. I've noticed really bad behaviors on the part of OneDrive in Windows 11. And this is something that's kind of escalated over the years. It goes back to the original version of Windows 11, where you had to have an MSA to sign into Windows 11 Home. And if you signed into Windows 11 Home with an MSA, which you had to, it would auto-configure folder backup in OneDrive. And then the story for Pro was that if you sign into Pro, you, in the beginning, didn't have to use an MSA, but then starting in 22H2, you did. And you were given the choice, supposedly, to configure folder backup or not. But I found, and right now it's actually getting worse, about 2/3 of the computers I configure, I'm never given this option. I don't see it. It's just like home. So folder backup is becoming sort of mandatory for everybody. I recommend for people who don't want to use this feature, like I don't, to the first time they hit the desktop, go and turn it off. But I've noticed in 23H2, some new behavior that's just like escalating. Like I said, I've seen this now in at least 3 computers. I explicitly disable OneDrive folder backup, use my computer. Usually the way I notice is I'm doing something like I delete something from the desktop and it says, hey, when you delete from OneDrive, it goes to a recycle bin in the cloud. So, just make sure you're okay with that. It's like, I deleted this from the desktop, not from OneDrive. What are you talking about? And sure enough, it has silently enabled folder backup in the background for me. Bastard. Now, I hope this is a bug.
No.
Honestly, I'm hoping it's a bug. But there are other things.
Trying to help you, Paul. It's your friend.
It's your friend. It's your buddy. It's trying to do the good thing.
It's like throwing a motorcycle helmet at someone who's driving away without a helmet. It just doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
So
yeah.
There's other stuff happening in 23H2. So if you are browsing in File Explorer in any OneDrive folder, not any OneDrive folder, any OneDrive folder that's within or is desktop documents or pictures. Let me say that again. If you don't have OneDrive folder backup enabled and you are browsing within the local desktop documents or pictures folders, you will get a backup now prompt in the File Explorer window that you cannot get rid of. Now, I'm hoping there is a registry edit that will fix this. No one knows what it is right now. But right now it's just like kind of an annoying thing, but it's worse than that. There are actually backup now ads all over the system. And the one I'll point out is that if you go into the settings app and go to personalization background, which is where you configure the wallpaper, and if you have an image, it will prompt you there to back up your pictures folder, which, by the way, is not necessarily where that wallpaper is. And they do not back up wallpaper to your Microsoft account. So I don't know what it's doing there, but okay. So I wrote a big article about this. I explained how you could work around each of these things, except for the one that you can't, the prompts in File Explorer. And then the weekend happened, and I got bit on multiple computers with that thing I was talking about, where now I've seen it on 3. And I finally wrote an article about what I did to fix it. And by fix it, I don't mean fix it. I'm sorry. That's not even the right word. It's really a workaround, because I can't stop it right now from silently turning on folder backup. But what I can do is ensure I'm never using those folders. One way, by the way, to switch to a different folder, like a cloud storage service, that would fix it. Google Photos, I've been testing that. Google Photos, not Google Photos. Google Drive, which, like Dropbox or whatever, has an installable app, and, it integrates with the file system just like you would expect. Works great. That's fantastic. That thing doesn't prompt you about anything. It just works. It's nice. You could do that. But what I finally did with OneDrive, because, I have a lot of data in OneDrive, but it's also my most important data. Like my photo collection is there, and my documents archive is there. Also the documents I work on daily, like my current work document, everything's there. That's why I use OneDrive. So I just said, I'm going to ignore the OneDrive folder structure. And by the way, you can delete the desktop and documents and pictures folders to your heart's delight in OneDrive, and they will keep coming back like Freddy Krueger or something. So don't worry about that. Just make a folder in the root. I called mine Paul, because no imagination. And I put all my stuff in there. I created my own documents, photos, whatever folders I have. And I just use those folders. And
you shouldn't have to do that. That is awful.
I cannot agree more. It is the worst. So
there's no box that you could check that says just don't use OneDrive.
Oh my God. So here's the possibilities. First of all, one is that the auto enabling of folder backup is a bug, right? That could be true. 23H2 is not finalized. I'm using it in release preview. Maybe it's broken. Microsoft, people could complain. Remember the OneDrive story from before? If enough people complain, I bet they step back from this cliff. So if you see this stuff and you don't like it, there's something you could do, and I'll do it for sure. And then the other alternative is that either through registry hacks, for lack of a better term, or third-party utilities, we will find ways to turn the stuff off in the registry. It's just not in the UI. And maybe we'll come to the UI, over time. I don't know. But right now it's not. And I'm hoping someone will figure this stuff out. So Raphael, or whoever you are out there, please look at this, because OneDrive has been annoying. It's super useful. I mean, the service is fantastic, but in Windows 11, it's gone from annoying to pathological, and I'm just trying to work with it. I'm trying to do my best. It's like dealing with a person who has dementia. It has good days and bad days, and I am worried about the future.
It definitely slams into this whole, I really don't care what you need to do. I need to show you this right now.
This is the literal definition of this, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yep. You've stopped even pretending to care. It's gotten bad.
No,
so
look
frustrating.
At that.
Yep. But again, I'm just being pragmatic here. Whatever. I mean, I just want to get work done here. I don't want to be badgered all day long. It doesn't stop a lot of the other bad behaviors. I mean, I spend a lot of time configuring Microsoft Word to save files locally instead of to OneDrive, because I want to put those things someplace specific, and I always do. And Word throws up little warnings all the time. That stupid little bar at the top. Mm-hmm. You'd be a lot safer. You put it in OneDrive. It's like, I've been using this product for 10 years. What's going to be going to OneDrive. Just shut up. Yeah. But you can't turn that off either. So someone asked about Windows 10. I don't know. I'm sorry. Some of this, I think, is tied to the changes they're making to File Explorer in Windows 11, that it may rely on functionality that's only in that version of the product. So you might not see some of it. I don't know in like the settings app in Windows 10. I don't know. But it does certainly. OneDrive on Windows 10 supports automatic folder backup. I don't know if they're forcing the issue there as well. I'm sorry. I'm not sure. Okay, and then app pick of the week is Microsoft OneDrive. Just kidding. Is Microsoft Teams. That's a weird one too for me to recommend in some ways, except for one thing. They just came up with that new version. And the new version of Teams is a significant advance over the initial version in so many ways. It's smaller, lighter, et cetera, et cetera.
Do you ever get whiplash, Paul? Like just trying to
justify my existence.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm just treading water until the waterfall comes. I just don't even know what to do anymore. Like I just feel it's certainly gotten worse over time, right? So why am I Microsoft Teams?
But Teams is good.
Yeah, it's much better. And I say this in the spirit of people have to use Teams in some cases, like I do.
A lot of people do.
I've always hated that pig of an app. It's gotten worse and worse over time. The new version is a significant advance. And here's like a stupid little thing. One of the major problems I had with Teams, until the new version, was that it would never remember my audio video settings. So I'd have like a speaker, microphone, or something wrong almost every day. And actually that works now. Like that just works. And I always said, like, guys, I don't understand why there isn't a little button in Teams that says, these are my preferred devices. If they're present, always use them. You shouldn't even have to think like that, but now you don't have to worry about it. It just works fine. So that stuff's great. It takes up a lot fewer resources. It's better looking, if that means anything to you. I wish I could say the same for the new Outlook app, right? So if you're a consumer and you're coming from the mail calendar apps, which, the mail app was ridiculously bad. The calendar app was fine, but it's an okay upgrade. If you're coming from the work version, like the real version of Outlook, I'll call it, this is not an upgrade at all. It's like someone replaced your Ferrari with a clown car. I don't know what's going on here. It doesn't even support like offline usage. It's crazy. So the fact that they've already put this out in the world is a little strange, but the good news is you don't have to use it yet. And for people using Outlook for like work related reasons, the real Outlook, I think it's going to be as long as even a couple of years before you have to switch to it. So cross your fingers that they actually fix all the problems before then for you.
No, they keep breaking things in Outlook. It's just going to drive adoption.
Yeah.
Path.
And it doesn't help the fact that there are at least 5 different versions of the app called Outlook, all of which are hilariously different from each other. And we could talk about that someday. Maybe we should. But I'll do an episode of Hands on Windows called "What is Outlook?"
What
many things to
and it
many
would just be like Outlook going, "What am I?"
Hey, breaking news. I guess Satya Nadella just got around to opening his mail. And as happens sometimes, might have happened to you, he's got a letter from the IRS saying Microsoft owes an additional $29 billion in back taxes.
Ooh, that's going to hit the bottom line.
Microsoft says it's going to appeal.
You think? $29 billion. That's a lot of lawyers.
It's a notice.
The first thing he did was like he pressed that button on the intercom and he says, "Could you bring Amy Hood into my office immediately, please?"
Yep. Yep.
Who hasn't been filling in their T4?
Right.
Showed
Amy,
up
how
in,
much do you make every year? Is it $29 billion? Because if it isn't.
The dispute, according to Microsoft, concerns the company's allocated profits between countries and jurisdictions. Oh, that old overseas.
Oh, the old
offshoring.
They were playing the Irish game.
The Dutch wraparound with the Irish handoff. Yes. Between 2004 and 2013, companies set up to $10 billion in taxes the company's already paid are not reflected in the proposed adjustments, and they're going to contest the notices.
Hilarious.
Through administrative appeal and judicial.
Got an email from the UK saying, "Good news, but
but you can buy it, but your chaps in DC want a little bit of backsheesh." So that just broke in their 8K, which they just filed. So,
boy,
Microsoft's 8K. Must have been do you think they get like the rest of us do, like a letter, and you go, "Oh God, it's from the IRS." This could be good news.
And I actually just give it to my wife, so
me too.
We do that.
Honey, honey, we got a letter from the IRS.
This looks like bad news.
Here, take it.
Slide it under the door.
And you know what she does? She says, "Yeah, we're going to send that to our accountant." Yep.
Right.
I'm pretty sure the IRS just sent it to Brad Smith.
I'm sure. Yeah.
It is the largest companies in the world and may have phoned them.
$29 billion is a significant amount of money.
I think that AI cost is going to have to go up a little bit.
Wow.
But maybe we're talking about the IRS anchoring high.
Right. Would you accept $18 billion?
Yeah.
What is Mr. Richard Thomas? Richard Thomas was, of course, John Boy on the wonderful show. Good night, John Boy. No, Richard Campbell. What is coming up on Run as Radio?
Published this morning. I did a show with Kelly Shortridge, who's a security specialist. about her book on security chaos engineering. So what the heck are we talking about here? This is actually got a Netflix reference in it, because back in the day when Netflix first moved onto the web, they were so large, like you basically couldn't test it. There's not enough internet to do testing. And so it was Adrian Cockcroft and those guys who came up with this concept of chaos engineering, where they literally wrote software that would randomly shut off services just to make sure the system could recover. Like there was almost no other way to test. And there's some interesting advantages to that, just because it does unusual things. You're thinking about the usual approach. And Kelly's book really digs into this idea from a security perspective. And it's about attacking assumptions, just going through the chain of authentication and connection and stuff that your system counts on, like, say, a cookie, and say, well, what would happen if that changed? Like just introducing that chaos into the equation and seeing how the system would respond to that. So it was a really fun conversation, just because it makes you think about it's the old Mark Twain quote, it's not what you know, it's what you know ain't so. Like all of those little assumptions you have about that token will always be there, that authenticator is always there, like those kinds of things. And as soon as they aren't there, how does your system recover, or how does it respond? What does it expose? That's where the breaches come from. So it was a really great approach to, once you've got the fundamentals down and you've got your perimeters and your zero trust working and so forth, how do you get better? And that's where the chaos engineering equation comes into play.
Can't wait. Run as Radio, runasradio.com. And now you all have been so good. I think you deserve a little treat, as always, at the end of the show. I'd like to put a little cherry on the top with Richard's brown liquor pick of the week.
It better be a cherry, and it better be a hard cherry.
Yeah, you want to put it. I've been avoiding this one for a while.
I'm kind of surprised to see this. To be
no. This is
honest.
I'm actually glad you're doing this, because this is one I think people. If you saw the name, you're like, "This, what is this, moonshine? What am I talking about?"
No. I think at least out here, it's one people venerate, like the Virgin Mary. Yes. And
okay, there you go.
Arguably inappropriate. So we're talking about Pappy Van Winkle.
Pappy, baby. We know it so well out here. We just call it Pappy.
There you go. And it's one of those, I seem to be having a run lately of whiskeys you cannot buy. This certainly falls into that category. It's just nowhere to be found. And
this is this is the 23 year. This is
the 23 being
pretty special.
The hardest to find, although I would argue not my favorite either, but
yeah, I was really disappointed. No, I think I probably had a regular Pappy, probably 15, but I was underwhelmed for all of the attention it gets.
It's overhyped, but let me tell you how it became like that, because it's part of the mythology. Part of the story is very fascinating. It's actually hard to dig into the real narrative behind Pappy, because it has been completely overhyped and overwritten about. So, I mean, for starters, it is a great story of American bourbon. So Julian Van Winkle Sr., who they called Pappy, from his teenage years, 1893, he's 18 years old, and he is a liquor wholesaler for the W.L. Weller and Sons company. These are old school bourbon makers. And is not as uncommon in that era. 15 years or so later, in his 30s, he and another salesman for W.L. Weller, a guy named Alex Farnsley, they actually buy W.L. Weller. So they take it over. And these are liquor wholesalers. So they are buying and bottling elsewhere and pushing it out. And by 1910, they buy the Stitzel distillery, which is in Louisville. So Arthur Stitzel comes along with it. He's having financial problems. And so now they're all working together. He had been a major supplier for W.L. Weller in the first place. So these guys have been selling stuff. They already had a relationship. I mean, how these things happen. And then, of course, Prohibition comes into play. But they managed to negotiate with the government to remain open as a distillery because they're producing medicinal whiskey.
Wait, what?
There was a set of distilleries that were able to convince the government that they made whiskey for medicinal purposes, and so they didn't have to close. Now,
and
limited production.
What exactly?
I know.
What exactly did this help? What conditions? Yeah. Was this the treatment?
It's like one of those animals people bring on planes, but it's like
I have a lot of something. I really have a lot of sobriety right now, and whiskey fixes that.
It's my emotional support whiskey.
Exactly.
It is, yes.
And in my list of things to do for this show is to do a whole show just on prohibition, because it is.
Oh, yeah, fascinating. Yeah.
And the municipal whiskeys will follow that play. But
especially the loopholes. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. And the Stitzel distillery fell into that. And during that time, they merged the two, started calling it Stitzel Weller. They also had a heads up that Prohibition was going to end, so they started building a distillery. So Prohibition ends in 33, and by 35, they built a brand new distillery in Shively, which is a suburb of Louisville, where they're primarily manufacturing Old Fitzgerald, which is a whiskey that still exists to this day, although the brand has moved on. Stitzel and Farnsley both die in the 40s. Van Winkle runs the place by himself until the 60s, and then he passes it on to his son, Julian Van Winkle Jr., who operates it until he's in his 80s as well. And then the third generation, Julian III, takes over. Now, though, whiskey was not very popular in the 70s. Other highballs and so forth came in. We've talked about this before. And so they were struggling and actually sold the whole organization to a company called Norton Simon. But part of that agreement was that Julian was able to still buy the aging barrels, the barrels that were still sitting in the distillery. So the distillery was going to be run by a different company, but he had all these barrels laid up. So it's like, well, let me keep using the barrel spaces and I'll just buy the barrels and resale them. I would argue the story of Pappy Van Winkle really hubs around Julian III, because at this moment, he's sold his distillery, but he still owns a bunch of barrels. Well, actually, he doesn't even own the barrels. He has the right to purchase them. And he's getting them bottled elsewhere, and he's just selling the product, right? Now, Norton Simon, you've never heard of. It ends up in a series of mergers. Eventually, by the 90s, it becomes United Distillers. Those are the folks that both had distilleries in Ireland and Scotland. Today is now Diageo. They're doing a barrel storage for other folks as well. In fact, by the 90s, they shut down the distillery entirely. They're just doing barrel storage. The barrels are starting to run out. So, now we're in the 90s. They're just about they're getting low, but stuff's getting old. And Julian's trying to figure out, like, can I sell old bourbon? Most bourbon's not aged longer than 5 or 6 years. Here he is with these 20s. So in 1994, he makes the first Pappy Van Winkle. It was an old name. There was old Rip Van Winkles, a few others, but to make Pappy with his grandfather, has a picture of his grandfather smoking a cigar on the outside of it. And he had a saying, and it was always bottle less than you can sell. Leave them wanting. Remember, he doesn't own a distillery. He doesn't have all of those expenses. He's picking the best barrels out of that Stitzel barrel house, getting them bottled and selling them out immediately. Now, United Distillers becomes Diageo. They eventually rehabilitate the distillery in 2014, but that's secondary to the point, okay? When he gets to 1998, he makes an edition, the first Pappy 23. And he puts it into the World Spirits Championship, where it scores an unprecedented and never duplicated 99 out of 100.
Yeah.
That is the mythology, right? Was the 99 out of 100 from the 1998 World Spirits Championship. But it was also not to last. He was out of barrels. And so by 2002, he cuts a deal with the Sazerac Company, which is the Buffalo Trace Distillery. That's when this brand moves there, and they actually now start new production and barrelings. Now, Buffalo Traces makes a huge number of whiskeys. And again, we've talked about things like Blanton's and Elmer T. Lee and E.H. Taylor, Weller. That's where W.L. Weller ended up. Eagle Rare is there, Buffalo Trace, and so on. And they also make rums and gins and so forth. It is a big production facility, and so they're very organized. And they have famously 3 mash bills on how they make their whiskey. And Pappy Van Winkle falls into Mash Bill 3, which is a wheated whiskey, which wasn't originally. It used to be a rye whiskey, but now it's a wheated whiskey with a high amount of wheat, like 15% wheat, pretty high. We don't know exactly how much. W.H. Weller has exactly the same mash bill. And by the way, I've drank a lot of Weller. I've drank a lot of Pappy. Really not a lot of difference between the two.
Interesting.
So the new version of Pappy Van Winkle comes out in 2011. So And that's the Pappy 15, which is a barrel strength bourbon. Comes out at 53%, very high for bourbon. Retails for about $120, and it's a hit. It's not a 99 out of 100 hit, but remember that whiskey does not exist anymore. The new 20 comes out a couple of years later, retails for about $200, and it's 45%. It's actually the lowest. And then the new 23 at 48% retails for about $300. Not that you can buy it for that price. So it's not actually the same product, right? They had to standardize to fit the Buffalo Trace production line. Those last Stitzel bottles are highly prized that were sold in the 90s from about 94 to 98. Last year in December, a Pappy 23 from the 98 edition sold for $52,000 US. So, I mean, I'm telling you about a whiskey you can't buy. It is mythological. In fact, it's also highly hacked at. You can sell an empty Pappy bottle on eBay, $100.
Nice. Oh,
and then
how
people
interesting!
With whatever, put the seal on it and try to resell it. So, don't buy whiskey from eBay, please.
Yeah,
it's just common sense life advice, really.
Yeah.
10 years ago, a game I used to play in the Northeast, running from Kentucky up to as far as Boston, is going to little liquor stores in the backwoods that are old, that have been around 100 years, which you find up there, because they often were still on the allocation from the Pappy folks, and they would have a bottle every so often that they were selling for retail.
Wow.
That is over. You just can't find this stuff anymore. But we can't tell the story of Pappy Van Winkle without talking about the heist. There's a movie. They made a movie.
Oh, what's the name of the movie?
The Heist.
I have to watch it.
So here's the story behind the movie.
Yeah.
In 2015, the Buffalo Trace Distillery filed a report with the police about over 200 bottles of Pappy Van Winkle being stolen from the distillery. It didn't take within a year or so, they had figured it out. It was an inside job. It was a guy named Toby Kurtzinger who worked for the distillery in transportation and delivery. Had not just been stealing Pappy, he'd been stealing everything. It turns out that bourbon facilities are not particularly secure, and he would relabel barrels for disposal, and he'd dispose of them, except they were full of Eagle Rare. And he had discovered that while the Pappy stays in locked cabinets, the hinges weren't welded in, and so he'd knock the hinges out and just take some bottles with him every so often. And so when they finally caught up with him, he had every kind of whiskey from Buffalo Trace, stashes of it, and was quietly selling it on the side. Actually, not all that quietly. He was also selling steroids on the side. He was big on weed. Most criminals are not that bright. Although prosecutors went after them as a crime syndicate. So they really threw the book at them. They provided evidence to show that he'd been stealing from the distillery starting back in 2008 through to 2015 when they finally caught up with them. Here's the one that's going to get you. Are you ready? 200 plus bottles of Pappy stolen. Because they were taken out of bond without properly being taxed, it's now illegal whiskey, and you can't guarantee the quality on it, and they all have to be destroyed.
What? If anything, it should be worth more.
Well, I would totally agree. Make a deal with the government, pay the taxes, don't guarantee the quality, because you really don't know what he did with them. It was handled by a guy who likes to combine steroids and marijuana, so he can't be that bright. Who knows? They may have been overheated. They're certainly mishandled. You don't know what you're going to get, but they're certainly covered in mythology. But all that stuff, everything he stole, ordered to be destroyed. And hey, you want to taste it? You're not going to find it. It's always
go to a
you've
bar.
Got to be friends
go to a
friends.
bar. Yeah,
you can enter the auction. You can check with bars. They'll never put it on the menu, but you can ask for it.
If you go to a fancy place, especially in the Napa Valley, some of them
Las
have
Vegas,
Pappy. Vegas. Yeah. They'll give you.
But if you want to know what it tastes like,
a shot for a couple $100 or something.
Yeah. If you want to know what it tastes like, go find yourself a bottle of W.L. Weller. The Weller 15 or the Weller Reserve. It's a Pappy 15 all day long. Same mash bill, very much the same style. It's really not that different.
And it's from Buffalo Trace too, right?
It's all the same distillery. Yep. It's the same mash bill. It's the same rick houses. It's the same barrels.
Interesting.
But is it the same bottle? I think we can all agree.
It's not. It's ugly. I don't like it.
Yeah, no.
I don't like it.
I mean, it's fine. And they're making all kinds of special editions and so forth. But because these are profitable, right? This is the same thing that's happened to like running shoes.
Right.
Where you make as many different brands at small watts. You know, remember right from the very beginning, Julian III, he figured out don't make make less than what people want.
Right.
So that you create the sense of character.
That's why I always deliver less than what people want. It just really is a life strategy.
It's why we keep all of these shows to under an hour.
Yes.
So yeah, if you and I'm not going to say anything good about the movie, like it is.
It's not a great movie, but it's a good story.
And they obviously had to adapt it for the movie in the bunch of criminals. But it felt like I can't tell the story of Pappy if you don't talk about the heist, because the fact that he was stealing all the other booze, nobody cared, right? Like that was fine. It was only when a bunch, because there was so little of it that they could, 200 bottles. He was stealing whole barrels of Eagle Rare and nobody noticed.
I think just saying Pappy Van Winkle is fun. I think that's half the.
I know to me that's half of it too. It sounds like it's this backwoods, moonshine stuff.
Pappy.
But it is very old bourbon.
His Pappy and his brother Slappy.
BuffaloTraceDistillery.com. Pappy Van Winkle. Get the 23. It'll only be a few grand.
I would argue get the 15 if you can find it. It's the only barrel strength. I think it's got the most flavor of the bunch, and it's a heck of a lot more.
So get the 15. Well, that's good advice. You saved us a little money there.
Right, but again, try the Weller first. The Weller Reserve. Try that first. You'll find it'll be easier to find. Very comparable to the 15.
Interesting. That there is Richard Campbell. He is the star of Run As Radio and .NET Rocks, runasradio.com. Joins us every week for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott on your left. He is, of course, the guy at Thurrott.com. It'd be funny if he wasn't. But anyway, THURROTT, Thurrott.com. Be a premium member. You'll get all of the articles we described today were premium.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be a premium. That's where it is. And while you're at it, you might want to get a copy of Windows Everywhere, his latest book at leanpub.com, or the Field Guide to Windows 10. I think last time I looked, subscribing to the premium gets you the Field Guide, I think. Am I wrong?
So right now, the way it works, you get the web version, but we have a new newsletter called Windows Intelligence, and if you subscribe to that, you do get Windows 11 Field Guide.
That's what it was, yes. Mr. Thurrott, Mr. Campbell, thank you so much. We do Windows Weekly every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That would be 1800 UTC for the next couple of weeks anyway, till we go to standard time. You can watch us do it live at live.twit.tv. There's live audio and video there. Chat with us live in our Discord for Club Twit members. And if you're not a Club Twit member, there's an IRC channel at irc.twit.tv. After the fact, the show's available at twit.tv/dubdub for Windows Weekly. And there's a YouTube channel called Windows Weekly. But the best thing to do, find a good podcast player and subscribe, because that way you'll always have a copy, so you can listen at your leisure. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. We'll have a great week. We'll see you. Paul, you're going to be still at home? You're not going to Mexico next week?
No, I'll be in Mexico next week.
Okay. Paul's on his way. Where will you be?
Porto. Oh, Porto. Nice. Porto,
Portugal?
Right. Yes.
Damn. You don't get to rest much, do you, Richard? Wow. Well, I look forward to it. We'll be in Portugal and Mexico next week on Windows Weekly. I hope you'll be where you are, and we'll join us. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Come join us on This Week in Enterprise Tech. Expert co-host and I talk about the enterprise world, and we're joined by industry professionals and trailblazers like CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs, every acronym role, plus IT pros and marketeers. And we talk about technology, software plus services, security, you name it, everything under the sun. You know what? I learn something each and every week, and I bet you will too. So definitely join us. And of course, check out the twit.tv website and click on This Week in Enterprise Tech. Subscribe today.